Everybody, welcome to the Hang Up. It is Wednesday evening. I'm Matt Dillahunty. What the heck am I hung up on today? Well, lying liars and why people would lie knowingly and pass out misinformation in the midst of a major disaster. For those who don't know, it's hurricane season, and there's not only was there a hurricane that just caused massive devastation in Hurricane Helene, but the latest is barreling down on Tampa, Florida, and let's just say almost all of Florida. It's alternated between a Cat 5 and a Cat 4. They've named it Milton, but it's going to be making landfall in Florida while we're on the air tonight. And Florida is near and dear to my heart. Not only did I go to boot camp in Orlando, which is no longer there, but I have family members who are down there. I have a uncle who was, or a great uncle that was the former mayor of Miramar. Arden has family in Florida. We have family, friends, mods, co-hosts. Phil Ferguson's down there. By the way, if any of you are watching tonight, stay safe. The interesting thing to me is that we know, hey, these are the storms. This is the season. This is when it's going to happen. We're kind of used to this. And it's really easy for some people to be like, well, pull the kind of Sam Kinison thing of, move to where the food is, or move out of the path of the hurricane. But you don't just get to suggest that people move and give up and all that stuff. The reality is that no matter who they are, what religion they're a part of, who they voted for, there's going to be a whole bunch of people down there who are in desperate need of help. And the federal government has already jumped in and done a stellar job, praiseworthy by people of both parties in preparing for this. And yet Donald Trump is breathing and speaking, which means that Donald Trump is lying. And so far, he's been called out by President Biden in a public address just a little while ago, as well as Mitt Romney and countless others are starting to point to even Ron DeSantis. But Trump, what he said was, among many other things, he falsely claimed that Kamala Harris had spent all the FEMA money, billions of dollars on housing. Here's the quote: spent all her FEMA money, billions of dollars, on housing for illegal migrants, many of whom should not be in our country. None of that's true, but that's what Trump said. He also said they stole the FEMA money just like they stole it from a bank so they could give it to their illegal immigrants that they want to have vote for them this season. This is batshit crazy conspiracy theorist level lies coming from the former president of the United States, who is currently running to be president again. Irrespective of what you think about him on other issues, this is a lie done solely for his personal gain, to throw shade at his opposition in the hopes that he can fool more people into voting for him. And the information that he's passing on is actually causing problems in FEMA's distribution of and help to people, because people are getting the wrong information and don't know where to go for help. This has already been countered by Republican governors in the impacted states talking about how great things have been with FEMA. It's been called out by other Republicans in Congress. And what he also said was that FEMA offered them less money in the initial check, or that they gave them, they got $750 and that's it. And it turns out that $750 was the first default payment for anybody who is part of this disaster, who fills out the paperwork. And by the way, that's $250 more than the initial check they would have gotten while Trump was in office and running FEMA. By the way, Republicans, a bunch of them just kind of voted to try to defund FEMA. And Mitt Romney said, quote, former President Trump told us that the people in Springfield are eating dogs and cats, all right? He likewise said that FEMA money, our emergency money, instead of helping the people that are being hit by the hurricane, is being used to help illegals. This is Romney still. He just makes it up. So he's able to spew enough disinformation that the Chinese must be smiling, added Romney, When it comes to a holiday from the truth, he's taken the longest vacation. It's no surprise that Mitt Romney doesn't like Trump. He's been vocal in opposition to Trump. It's a little frustrating that Romney won't actually endorse Kamala Harris, but I get that he wants to still have a voice in the Republican Party. And if he endorses a Democrat, it's a hindrance to him actually making improvement. And generally speaking, while I'm not a fan of Mormonism at all, I don't dislike Romney. I think Romney is one of the more level-headed, reasonable right-wing people I've ever seen, and yet still problematic on what he is or isn't willing to support. But I mean, if you were to say, hey, vote for Trump or a pet rock, I'd vote for a pet rock. But if you said vote for Trump or Mitt Romney, I'd be voting for Mitt Romney with a quickness. But not even close. Like, I'd have to think about it a little bit with the pet rock. What we do know is that this storm is terrible, and it is vacillating between Category 4 and Category 5. Maybe this will convince people in Florida that they can put the words climate change back into their textbooks. It won't do anything to prevent the next storm, and it's too late to really dig in on that. But considering they're removing the very any hope of addressing the causes of the increases like this, because essentially the Gulf is heating up, and that turns the storms into superstorms. And that's why you're getting nearly back-to-back significant storms. This may be, this should probably easily be in the top 10 of recorded hurricanes to hit Florida. How bad it is, we have yet to see. But it's not enough, evidently, for the MAGA-infested members of our government, or people who'd like to be members of our government, to merely lie about FEMA while they're trying to defund it, and lie about what the federal government's doing to support the people there. They also have to go a step further. And this is where we get to Marjorie Taylor Greene. I know. Why? Well, because for some reason, this lump of unthinking garbage is still a member of Congress. This person who thinks there's Jewish space lasers, evidently to start forest fires, also think that the Democrats can control the weather. Now, to be fair, she said they can control the weather without ever saying who they are. I'm assuming that they are the same ones who don't want you to know about this new secret medical treatment, and they are the ones who are secretly rigging the vote in a way that's completely undetectable. Marjorie Taylor Greene is too stupid to be permitted to continue in office, but the law says she gets to stay, and so I'm hoping that people will be able to vote her out of office at some point. Maybe she'll say one crazy thing too many, and finally, the good people of Georgia will toss her out of office. I'd love to see a recall, because this is genuinely a level of batshittery that should disqualify one from running for office or being a member of Congress. Let's imagine for a second that Democrats could control the weather. Do you think this is what we would use it for? And why is it that when a hurricane hits the people you like, it's the Democrats doing it to punish, I don't know, Christians or right-wing voters, and when it hits somewhere else, it's God punishing us for supporting homosexuality? Why is it that the Democrats are smart enough to have built a weather control machine, and the Republicans aren't smart enough to have built a weather controlling machine? Because, if they had, then the Democrats wouldn't be able to control the weather, because the Republicans would just pull up their weather controlling machine and redirect it, turn it off. Just turn this hurricane off, right? Like that. I mean, we can have dueling weather stuff. We've seen it. I remember watching Dr. Evil trying to create a weather controlling device. And even if you go back to like the 60s with Armand Flint, the scientific community got together, and because the governments wouldn't do what they wanted, they decided, we're going to control the weather. We can send volcanoes and earthquakes and all kinds of stuff. Yeah, that's the reality we live in now. Marjorie Taylor Greene thinks that somebody is able to control the weather. Are we going to have a Cold War? And instead of nuclear missiles, we're going to have weather control devices. I just wish the Republicans would hurry up and build theirs, so that maybe we could send a cold front one way and a warm front the other way, so that the Democrats can send the cold front, the Republicans can send the warm front, and then we can cause it to rain on areas that are really in need of rain to grow crops and stop people from dying. Oh gosh, I guess I'm just not as evil as some folks had wanted, because if I had a weather machine, we'd have nice weather. It wouldn't be a weapon, and certainly wouldn't be used to control voting for anything other than let's grow food in places that can't currently grow food, so the people who can't currently eat can get some food to eat. And maybe that'll fundamentally change and improve the world. Marjorie Taylor Greene is genuinely one of the most horribly confused and stupid people on the planet. And it is an embarrassment that she's in public office. Jewish space lasers and their weather control devices. Even Ron DeSantis has warned people in Florida not to buy into the misinformation, not to fall prey to the lies that are being spread by Marjorie Taylor Greene, Donald Trump, and others. Setting that aside, though, thoughts and prayers aren't going to be enough. This is going to be a devastating storm. People are still slowly recovering from the hammering they got last week with Helene, going all the way up to North Carolina, hitting deeper into the country than we hardly ever see. And Ron DeSantis warns people, hey, don't buy into the misinformation. But when I say things like thoughts and prayers aren't enough, I want to be clear. If you're in Florida and you get hit by this storm, help the people you can help yourself, and help others to help people. And if there's a church that's out there doing good and helping people, delivering water, delivering sandwiches, thank them. It's probably one of the only times that they're actively going to be doing something useful, clearly, for society. So while their thoughts and prayers aren't doing anything, they clearly already know that their thoughts and prayers aren't going to do anything and aren't going to be enough, and that they need to hand out food and water and other things like that. So instead of attacking the churches for the normal BS views that they want to spread whenever something like this happens, thank them and congratulate them on chipping in and participating to help out, because we're going to need, in Florida, everybody's help. Now, as a reminder, there are people who don't know enough about disaster relief, who are likely to pack up a semi truck full of bottles of water and go charging towards Florida, because they just, in their head, it's let me get this water into the hands of the people that need it. And there may be a need for that and a way to do it, but make sure you're working cooperatively with FEMA and the emergency relief organizations that are there, because by and large, what they tend to not need in a devastated area is more people showing up. Get the deliveries in, get the deliveries out, but things need to be done somewhat orderly. And quite frankly, what needs to happen more often than not is people donating money to the organizations who are already better and more efficient at getting needed supplies into the hands of the people who need it. But follow the guidelines in your area. Look, we will also, as we find out more about what's going on, we will get links up so that people can contribute and support. But I mean, I'm not kidding. We've got moderators, co-hosts, family, friends all over Florida, and they're about to get just absolutely pummeled in a way that, I mean, this is going to go down in the history book. Somebody was saying, oh, it's too early in the century to call this the storm of the century. No, it's not. Call it the storm of the century. And then if, when we get the next one, it becomes the storm of the century. But let's hope that this is the storm of the century, and that for the rest of the century, nothing like this happens again. The reality is, things like this are going to continue to happen as long as we keep scrubbing climate change from our textbooks, the science about climate change from our government agencies, and from our hearts and minds, so that we can blissfully charge towards the destruction of ourselves and the planet. If we don't do it with climate change or nuclear war, we'll do it with religion and actual, like, fighting over our beliefs and everything. There's a good case to be made that it may be time for humans to go extinct because we suck. On the other hand, we're us and we're the ones making the decision. So my vote is to continue the human species and to continue doing what we can to help people. But when we have people running for office or currently in office who are actively lying, actively spreading misinformation, and so divorced from reality that they think conspiracy theories involving weather control systems are actually true, I don't know how to move forward without getting those people out of office, without making sure that those people never get back into office. You can say, "Oh, Matt's one of those elitists, he's going to trust the science, and he doesn't accept information that isn't reasonable." Yes, congratulations, you've figured it out. I prefer things to be reasonable. I prefer there to be good evidence. I prefer to make decisions based on the best available information and to set aside the conspiracy theories and the nonsense and the lies. Because there are people who are absolutely going to be dying in the next couple of days. A lot of them. They already warned people. The time to evacuate is over. If you decide to stay and you try to call for help, there will be no one available to help. Once winds get over 40 to 50 miles an hour, they stop sending helicopters and other potential rescue air vehicles in there. And we're looking at 140 miles an hour plus for a good chunk of this. There are people who think they can ride it out because they've ridden out storms before. I hope you're right. I especially hope that you're right now because it's too late to leave. Sea swells in that area are predicted to be as high as 9 to 15 feet. You're going to hear a lot more about this, and there's going to be a lot of people in need. And I will be working with organizations to make sure that we're not getting mired in the finger pointing and name calling. And instead, let's get food and water and shelter into the lives of the people who are about to have those things violently ripped away from them. Tonight's guest is actually not in the direct path of the hurricane, but has dealt with the weather from there on occasion. Calling in from Georgia is a longtime friend of mine and of the show, founder and president of Black Nonbelievers, Mandisa Thomas. How are you, Mandy?
Man, Matt, I am doing okay. And before we get into the calls, I'd like to say thank you so much to the help that you provided, to the help that you offered, and to share the link to help with my vehicle.
Oh, yes.
Unfortunately, I was in an accident, and that vehicle was totaled a couple of weeks ago. In an accident, which just it sucks.
It's probably the
And
Jewish space lasers.
Yeah, exactly. That's exactly what happened. I went through the whole insurance thing. Unfortunately, the circumstances of the accident is leaving me at fault, even though I was not making an illegal turn. But I am working through that, and it's just interesting that the timing of these hurricanes and the weather are. I wouldn't say it's putting it on hold, but I am handling some other event things and logistics before I start looking for a new vehicle. And I also appreciate everyone who has checked in to ask if we were okay during Helene, and also during this what is it, Milton, that it's called now, hurricane, this new hurricane.
Yep.
Is Hurricane Milton. So yes, like you said, I'm not in the direct path of it, but again, my well wishes go out to everyone, to all of our members, and everyone that I know who is out in Florida, who is in the path. And like you, I will be also looking to see what we can do in order to help people in need as much as we possibly can. When you were
I think,
talking about, sure, yeah, I'm sorry.
no, you're good.
Okay. when you were talking about Trump and all of the lying and all of these politicians who are just spreading such misinformation and outright lies, that took me back to September 4th, my birthday in 2019, during Hurricane Dorian, when he extended the hurricane map with a Sharpie. And
Yes.
so I guess he thought he was just going to make this up. And so sadly, what we're seeing about Trump is that he has a history of lying, of exaggerating, and causing severe harm. And he's talking about how he had the best economy, the COVID pandemic so swimmingly, and it's like, no, so many people died in the United States because of the horrendous way that his administration handled the pandemic. There were so many things that could have been prevented that that he did not do. He did not listen to the officials at the CDC and those who he needed to listen to, especially, and he got rid of the response teams for for health crises. And it's so unfortunate that, and it is dangerous that we
Yeah.
are seeing these politicians who are trying to run the federal government like any private business that they run into the ground. And because he couldn't do it during his first term, now that is what they are trying to do if he is elected into office this time. And when we say that, if this Project 2025 is enacted, there will be many more people who will die because, like you said, they are trying to they are trying to defund and eliminate federal programs that did. Trump is on the record for having wanted to abolish the EPA for some time now, as well as the IRS. And that is really to just advance corporate interests, which is basically all he cares about. He has shown time and time again that he does not give a damn about people.
Yeah.
And clearly, I know that Ron DeSantis, the Florida governor, has sided with Trump before, but DeSantis is going to get a rude awakening, especially with the lies being spread about about FEMA and all of this misinformation. He is going to show how very little loyalty that Trump has. First of all, if you didn't see it before, he's
Yep.
going to see it now. This man has no loyalty to anyone. He does not give a damn about it. And so, for all of these people who have stood with him, sometimes we have to ask ourselves why. And I'm not speaking as the president of Black Nonbelievers. I'm just speaking as Mandisa Thomas, individual and voter and resident of the state of Georgia. Unfortunately, Marjorie Taylor Greene is not in my district, even though I do have Republican representatives that I would love to vote out of office because I am still in a county that is largely Republican. I see all of the Trump and Vance signs all over the place. Luckily, they are being countered with Harris Walz signs, which is great, but they're still a huge Republican demographic here in my county, which is still in the metro area. But
Yep.
Marjorie Taylor Greene's district is in North Georgia, which is it's still hugely Republican and conservative up there. And there's probably a lot of people who would need representatives that would work on their behalf, which we know she isn't going to do. And I had the opportunity to participate in the lobby day that is facilitated by the Secular Coalition for America back in March of this year. And I walked past her office and the all of the, I wouldn't say paraphernalia, but the thing, she has a huge sign that says there are two genders, male and female, trust the science. And there's all of this creationist stuff that is outside of her office. And I am like, how in the world is she allowed to get away with doing this stuff? It is absolutely ridiculous, and it is absolutely dangerous, because especially if these folks who want to, who want to put Project 2025 in place, they certainly do not care about the economically disadvantaged. They don't care about the poor. They do not care about LGBTQ folks. They do not care about people of color. They certainly do not care about progressives. And the only people they truly care about is who can benefit them and who have substantial amount of resources. And this should be alarming to everybody. It really, really should. But unfortunately, it seems like we still live in a society where people go by, like they seem to go by what's trending and what information they can obtain in the shortest amount of time and space, and not necessarily do the work to fact check. And those folks who are lying and spreading this information are capitalizing on that. And it's almost like they are just it's I don't think it's almost like they're calling people dumb to their face, even though that's not exactly what they're saying, but they might as well be, because they are capitalizing off of people's vulnerabilities, as well as the folks who just and who may not have the access to information depending on where they are, even though there is information available. But it is unfortunate that they are catering to, to those who are fundamentally inclined. And now is just not the time to be that way. It really isn't. We will need to stand up for ourselves and our rights and the rights of people around us. It is going to be more crucial now than ever.
If there was any reason, if anybody, I think watching, I don't know. Part of me is like, people can watch Trump and what he says and does, and should be able to figure out this guy is a narcissistic con artist who lies as easily as he breathes. And he just keeps saying things that aren't true, which means he's either incredibly dishonest or incredibly stupid or both. And either should be a problem for having him run for office. But the other thing is, like, when Taylor Swift came out and endorsed Kamala Harris recently, Trump immediately tweets, "I hate Taylor Swift." Now, if Taylor Swift had come out and endorsed Donald Trump, there's no way he tweets that.
Right.
Instead, it's just, so we all know that what he values more than anything else is people supporting him and being loyal to him. If Taylor had come out and endorsed him, there would have been no "I hate Taylor Swift" message. It would have been the exact opposite. So he hates Taylor Swift because she opted to choose, reality and decency and integrity over him.
Right.
And while I haven't heard for sure, I haven't heard any mention at all of Donald Trump donating any money to hurricane relief. And yet Taylor Swift just donated $5 million to Hurricane Helene and Milton relief. I mean, Milton is hitting right now and people are recovering from Helene. And Taylor Swift donates $5 million. And Trump just says, hey, they spent all of FEMA's money, which isn't true. And Marjorie Taylor Greene is talking about how they're controlling the weather. It is bizarre to me, the world we live in, where even when there's a natural disaster and it's a time for all of us to pool together and say, hey, let's help. If my neighbor's house is on fire, I just want to help them. I don't care. I do care who they voted for, what they voted for, other stuff, but none of that matters then.
Right.
And yet you can tell here we are in a presidential election, and he can't think beyond, let me say the thing that will hurt my opponent the most. Not even, what's the best thing I could do? Trump doesn't think in terms like that. It's not, what's the best thing I could do? How could I help people and even to gain notoriety from it? Like, let me donate $10 million to hurricane relief. And then, somebody will accuse me of trying to buy votes, but it doesn't matter because people got helped. He doesn't think about what good thing can I do or how can I do something that benefits us. It is, how can I hurt my opposition, because he only understands that hurting his opposition helps him. And that's why he just sits there and does the name calling and the lying. And it's just everything. Nothing is about, here's the good we can do. It's, here's the bad they do. And then they want to complain that it's the Dems who are being, negative or whatever else, when it's the Republicans who keep grabbing guns and taking shots at him.
You're absolutely right. You are absolutely right about that.
I'll tell you what,
we've got. Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'm saying we got calls for today, and they're lining up right now. As always, I'm interested in theistic callers, and theistic callers are going to get priority. That's not the full-on requirement. If you want to call tonight, you don't have to necessarily be calling about to defend your God belief, but we'd love it if you did. We'd love to understand how or why. You don't have to be calling into
tonight.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's is this hurricane part of God's plan? This hurricane isn't an act by people. It's not like somebody launched a missile at Tampa. This is part of the things that insurance companies would call act of God, even though they don't literally mean act of God. They're just saying this is beyond humanity's control. But if there is a God, then I would say this hurricane is within God's power to curb. And there are plenty of people who are praying. And I guarantee you, no matter what the outcome is, no matter how many people die, and people are going to die, no matter how much property damage there is, the people who are praying will still claim victory and just be like, it could have been so much worse, but God did this. It's like when a bus gets hit by a train and everybody dies except for one person, and they're like, oh, it's a miracle this person lived. Wait, so it's a miracle that all the rest of them died? I mean, talking about your cherry picking stuff. But looking at all this and what's happening, it's really difficult for me to see how some people can be like, this sort of thing is God's plan. You can talk about the problem of evil and humans doing evil and bringing evil into the world, and cool. Fine. I think it's nonsense, but what do you do about the hurricanes? I don't know. We're going to take some calls here. If you want to call in, defend your God belief and how hurricanes are part of his plan, or that hurricanes are not part of his plan. I'm not necessarily saddling you with a doctrine you don't hold, but how you make sense of all this, by all means, you can call in. It's 720-619-2288. And down below in the description, there's a link to call in studio so that you can do it from a web browser. One thing to remember, if you're on your phone and using the web client, your web browser will likely go to sleep and turn off your microphone. And so we won't be able to hear you. You'll need to tap your phone to wake it up and tap the browser again to get the browser woken up. And you probably have to do that a couple times. You might. I realize I have a phone with a bad battery that needs to be replaced. So I'm reluctant to tell people to do this, but you might set it up so that your phone doesn't automatically go into sleep mode, at least for the duration of the call. And we'll see if we can get some people in. If you're calling in to defend a really esoteric notion of God that you're kind of the only one that actually believes in, or if it's a God that doesn't carry with it any sort of consequences, like, oh, I think the universe is just conscious and we are the universe's way of seeing itself. Don't bother. I've had enough bong hit theology. It's absolutely useless. You're advocating for something that even if you could demonstrate that it's true, it would be useless to all of us. Deistic gods are beyond silly because you're claiming to demonstrate that which can't be demonstrated. You believe that something that doesn't interact with reality in any detectable way, you've detected it. And that's just kind of useless for me. Also, if you're calling in to just say God's a necessary presupposition for logic or morality or whatever else, you're not going to get anywhere. We're not going to be presupposing a God here. We need an actual demonstration. And if that's too much, if you're like, oh, that's the problem with Matt, if it's not scientism, he wants a concrete evidence-based argument for God. And that Matt just doesn't understand. That's not the way God works. Cool. Why not? Why is God incapable of providing the sort of evidence that we should expect? If you want to explain that, by all means, feel free to call in and explain why God is intentionally hiding and how you found the God that is intentionally hiding. But on that note, if you're ready, Mandisa, we can get to calls. And if not, I didn't know if there was another announcement I skipped over or not.
Nope, let's do it.
Sweet. Seems that somebody called in taking what I said as a joke, maybe perhaps more seriously than we expected. But Brian from Illinois, pronouns are he, him, wants to explain why people shouldn't go extinct. So, okay, why shouldn't we go extinct?
Uh-oh. Oh, my bad. It was muted. Caller, you're going to have to start over. Go for it now. You should be.
I'm sorry, Brian. We fixed it.
Yeah, all good. Can we just take 5 seconds for all the disasters and just whoever you are, whatever you are, but can we take 5 seconds, 10 seconds, just say a prayer or just a moment of silence for this is absolutely tragic what's been going on with these hurricanes.
No, Brian, we're not taking 5 or 10 seconds out of your call to pray.
Okay. No, I said either pray or do whatever, just a moment of silence, we do that.
Tell me, Brian.
No, it's fine.
Brian, how does a moment of silence or a prayer help people?
I don't think it helps people. I think that
cool.
It just
then why, Brian?
Nice
Why, Brian? Are you advocating that we do something that doesn't actually help?
Well, I just think that it's nice to take a moment to not think about yourself and actually think about people that are going to be absolutely devastated. And
did you hear my opening remarks? Tragic. Did you hear my opening remarks for this show?
I didn't.
Do you think that I was? When I ask a question and it's a yes or no question, answer the fucking question.
Wow, geez, what's wrong with you, man? I was just trying to be nice.
What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me is that you won't stop talking and you don't answer the question. And I'm sitting here saying you suggest we should do something that is useless. In my opening statement, was any of that about me?
That's
a yes or no. That's a yes or no.
I'm really
That's
sorry.
A yes or no. That's a yes or no question.
I already told you.
That's a yes or no question.
I did not answer.
That's a yes or no question.
I did not hear your opening.
That's a yes or no question.
I did.
That's a yes or no question. Why are you still saying something other than yes or no?
Because I'm not okay. I didn't. Because what I'm saying is I didn't hear your opening statement.
I don't give a shit.
I kind of jumped in.
You either say yes, no, or I don't know. Why is this so hard for you, Brian? Why are you trying to turn my show?
Know.
Shut up.
I don't know.
Shut up.
Wow. What's
Why
wrong
are you
with
trying?
You, man?
Shut up. Stop talking and listening. During the intro to the show, I talked about what's actually going on and encouraged helping people. And shut up. I encouraged helping people. I put the focus on that. I talked about what all is going to happen. I set all of this up so that we could get stuff actually done. Zero focus on me. It was all focused on other people. And you call in wanting to explain why people shouldn't go extinct as if I was remotely fucking serious that people should go extinct. So it already feels like a joke. Shut up. Shut your fucking pie hole until I'm done. Are we clear?
Okay.
Then you come in wanting to do hey, can we do a prayer and a minute of silence for all this instead of doing the thing that you called in to do. So, since I don't think you're serious, since I don't give a shit why you think people shouldn't go extinct because that was never actually an issue, and because you are advocating for us to do some thoughts and prayers bullshit, I'm going to give you one chance to say something that is either productive and valuable for the people who have been hit by hurricanes or about to, or something that is productive and valuable to the show that you called into, or I will just drop you. Please, Brian, continue.
Well, I was just saying, you said it, I called in, you backtracked immediately, and maybe it was just a joke, but like, do you really think that's a joke? You know, like, honestly, to say like human beings should go extinct, do you really think that's a joke? That's like a funny joke? Do you think you're a comedian? Because I think that's garbage. I think human beings have been amazing to this world, and yes, there's some bad things, but overwhelmingly, like, we're amazing. And for you to even joke around about that, like, I'm sorry, you're kind of pathetic.
Okay.
Brian, I'm sorry, I'm going to step in here for a moment because can you give some examples of how human beings have just been absolutely amazing in the wake of how people have been treated during disasters like this? The fact that there are
Yeah, well, I mean, like,
folks, yeah,
I'm sorry.
and you know you're
I'm
interrupting
gonna
his
put you on
again.
mute. Brian, don't you dare fucking talk over to my co-host. I'll have a little yelling match with you back and forth, but you interrupt and talk over my co-host again, and I will take your phone number, which I have, and add it to the ban list. So stop talking until the hosts stop talking and ask you a question and allow you to come back. Are we clear?
yeah, sure. I'm sorry, she was talking slow. I thought she was done. No disrespect.
If you were listening, you could figure out from cues when somebody's joking, when they're done talking, and when it's your turn to respond. Work on that. Please continue, Mandisa. I'm sorry for the interruption.
No problem. So I was asking Brian, I mean, if you are serious about, about answering the question or at least coming to some sort of understanding about why Matt would say such a thing, um, can you elaborate on how human beings have just been totally just amazing to each other to the point where even such a joke shouldn't have to be made?
Are you done? Are you done with your question? I don't want
Yes,
to
I'm done.
have.
I'm done.
Okay. Yeah. No. I mean, like, you don't think that humanity has been pretty amazing? As in, like, we care for each other, we love each other. Yeah.
I'm
There's
asking
obviously.
you though. Yeah, I'm asking you. Can you elaborate on that?
Yeah. No, I'm confused. So, you know, I think that we've done absolutely amazing things. I think that society is absolutely amazing. I think we've brought a lot of joy to this world. I think we've actually stopped a lot of animals from being extinct. We have to manage some of it because sometimes things get a little out of control, but we manage it. Like where I come from originally.
School shootings? What about school shootings? What about slavery? What about bigotry? What about war?
What is that, like, literally, like, so, like, what we're doing is we have a glass that's like a quarter full or 3/4 full, and I'm like, hey, the glass is 3/4 full, and you're looking at the glass a quarter full and saying that that's the worst. There's no doubt, and this is actually, I think. I've called in a few times, and one of the things is, like, actually what I'm trying to do is trying to reach across to you guys and trying to come to a reasonable agreement. So, like, for example, I think we can all come to agreement. Matt, like, I know you know a little bit about the Bible, and one of the things that I think good people can come to agreement on, Christians and atheists, is that being a good steward, we're called by God, being Christians. I know you don't believe in that. That's all fine. But being, like, one of the things that bothers me personally as being a Christian is we're called to be good stewards of the environment. And I don't think that we have been the absolute best. And that's a great conversation to have, is like, how can we do this better? And how can we, actually protect the environment better and to be good stewards of the gift that God has given me? Once again, I understand that you guys don't believe in God, but, like, I actually believe that God, the whole point of us being here is to be good stewards. And I think we, as an atheist, as you are, you want to, like, actually protect the environment And actually, me as a Christian, I actually want to prevent the environment. And one of the things that I think that we fall into with this whole atheist...
I'm sorry, Brian, but I'm now completely bored and you came nowhere near answering my question or Mandisa's question. I asked you about all the things that were negative and you're like, oh, you're doing the glass half empty thing. According to Christianity, which is the religion you prescribe to, why is there sin and death in the world?
Why is there sin and death in the world? Unfortunately, it's because humanity and people...
So we're to blame for everything that's wrong in the world, right?
I thought we were amazing.
I'm sorry. Are you saying that human beings are not to blame for everything that's wrong in the world?
I wouldn't say that human beings are responsible for the problems in the world.
What problem in the world didn't come from human beings? What problem in the world is not a result of the fall, according to Christianity?
That's a good question.
I know it's a good question.
What's that?
I know it's a good question. Name a problem in the world that is not, from the standpoint of Christianity, that is not the fault of the fall.
Okay, so the question is, here's my question to you, just to clarify your question. I'm not obfuscating your question. Are you questioning like what human beings are involved with? Because like you spoke about war and slavery, which is all horrible and gross. I think we can all agree. Or are you just talking about in general?
The Bible doesn't agree. The Bible doesn't agree. So I was saying, I wanted you to name something that's wrong with the world that is not, from the standpoint of Christianity, the result of the fall.
Okay, that's what I'm asking you, just to clarify.
I don't know how many times I can say the same thing over and over again and why we need clarity. I'm literally saying the same thing. Name a problem with the world that, according to Christianity, is not a result of the fall.
Is it man or nature?
Name a fucking problem that, according to Christianity, is not a result of the fall. Now.
Well, like there's asteroids.
Now.
There's asteroids that like can destroy the world. That's not man's fault.
So if man hadn't sinned, asteroids would still be coming here to kill people, right?
Yes.
Then why is it that the Bible says that sin and death entered the world? Because if they hadn't sinned, there would be no death and no asteroid could possibly hurt us. You don't understand your Bible or your doctrine. You are falling prey to kindergarten level theology.
Oh, okay. Thanks. I appreciate that.
I bet you don't.
I don't.
I bet you just realizing that you're in way over your head. Because is there anything that happens? Is there anything? Shut up!
So angry.
Shut up! Because you won't stop fucking interrupting. Here. Let's make it really easy. I'm going to mute you every time it's not your turn to talk, and then I'll unmute you when I'm allowing you to talk. Is there anything that happens in the world that is not go according to God's plan? Yes or no?
Do I have permission to talk? I'm confused.
You are one snarky little thing from never being allowed to speak in my presence again. I asked you a fucking question. Can you hear at the end of the question that the question is over? When I say yes or no, you can't figure out that that's your time to chime in with yes or no? Are you stupid? Have you never been asked a question before?
No, because you said that.
No, I'm going to mute you. We're going to try this once more, Brian. See, I asked a very specific question and ended it with yes or no. That is a prompt that I use pretty much every week to keep dishonest people like you from wandering off into 23 other subjects and to answer the question that I actually asked. And I asked that question. I'll just go ahead and tell you. I'm asking you to answer this question. Because if you say, yes, there are things that happen that aren't according to God's plan, you are now in contradiction with aspects of the Bible that suggest everything is according to God's plan. And if you say, no, nothing happens that isn't according to God's plan. Then if human beings were to make themselves extinct, that would be a part of God's plan. And if human beings slaughter each other, that's also part of God's plan. And if human beings enslave each other, that's also part of God's plan, which, by the way, is consistent with the Bible, which allows for slavery and permits it. So I'm going to ask you again, is there anything that happens that is not according to God's plan? Yes or no?
Oh, there's tons of things that happen not according to God's plan. And in fact, that's in the Bible. As in, for example, when Jesus is speaking and he talks about divorce, Jesus says, I permitted divorce because your heart was hardened, which means that's not according to God's plan. This is not according to God's plan.
So how is it we're doing things that violate God's plan? Did God not know this was going to happen?
So the knowledge of God is different than what God expects.
Sure. So God, why would God have expectations that he knows isn't going to come true?
That's confusing to me because that's not actually what I've ever understood about Christianity.
No. This is wholly consistent. You are saying there are things that happen that aren't what God wants, that aren't a part of God's plan for the future. And these things God also knew were going to happen. So why does God have the perfect being? Why does God have a plan that he knows isn't going to happen?
That was confusing. So if you don't, I can explain it.
No, I'm going to go back and ask it again. You already said there are things that happen that aren't what God wants to happen and aren't part of God's plan. But God knows that these things aren't going to happen, right?
Yes.
So why does God know what's going to happen in the future? And why does he have a plan that will never happen? Like he wants something to happen and he knows it's never going to happen. Why have that plan? Doesn't that mean God's a failure?
So no, not at all. So I'm not being disrespectful. I don't know if you have kids, but when you have kids, you kind of have a plan. For example, is I'm going to take my kids and we're going to go to the forest and we're going to enjoy nature. I'm going to teach them about nature, right? And you may have, let's just say you have 4 kids and you have 4 kids,
Brian,
and you want to teach them about nature.
Brian, are you saying that I can do something that breaks what God planned?
That's blatantly obvious in the Bible.
Cool. That means that I'm more powerful than God.
No, that's not true.
Absolutely.
That's terrible.
If I can do something,
no, it's not true.
Yeah, it is true because I can do something that God can't do, and I can do something that God doesn't want me to do.
Well, I'll repeat myself again, and I'll use the kid analogy. If you have kids, can you force your kids to do anything that you want them to do?
If I was a God, what would stop me from forcing my kids to do whatever I wanted?
No, but because that's the beauty.
If I were a God, what would stop me? You don't get to do an analogy where I'm a parent. Shut up! You don't get to do an analogy. Okay, guess who doesn't get to do any more fucking analogies on my show ever again, Mr. Laugh at My Face? You absolutely embarrassing train wreck of failed excuses for a God. You absolutely garbage thinking little fucking troll. Keep laughing.
Bye, Brian.
You know what, Brian? You are the worst representative of your God I could imagine right now, because we are all sitting here following the logic that you can't follow, which exposes the nonsense that you're saying about a God. And you're sitting there laughing.
Yeah, because I think it's absolutely hilarious that you don't understand any aspect of theology, and you just want to yell at everybody and think that you're smarter than everybody.
I am smarter
actually,
than you. I'm way fucking
No,
smarter
you're
than
not.
you, Brian.
You're actually,
Brian,
you're actually,
I am massively smarter than you, and I will put up $1,000 and sit down and take any standardized test head to head with you on general knowledge, IQ, Bible, whatever the fuck you want. Whenever you want. Let's go. Let's do it.
I understand you're
Bring
an
it.
outrageous
Bring it.
narcissist, but like,
No,
that's
I'm
besides
not.
the point.
I'm not at all, Brian. What I want is for people to be honest in conversation. When I ask a fucking question and you don't avoid it, or you pretend like it's too complicated, or you're too confused, and then in response, you suggest that I'm the one that doesn't know anything. I don't know anything about theology. Oh, really? I don't know anything about theology. Then why are you calling me? Because I'm not calling you.
Because I was just trying to have a conversation, and all you've done the whole time is like literally manifested like demons and been outrageously angry for no reason whatsoever. And
I've manifested demons. Brian,
yeah.
how, Brian, I need you to demonstrate exactly when and how I manifested a demon.
Oh, very simply. I called in originally and been like, hey, let's put our stuff aside and just take like 5 seconds to acknowledge the horrible victims. And like, you freaked out on me and started yelling at me immediately. Like, what kind of person doesn't want to take like 5 seconds?
That's not true. That's a lie.
Yes, it is.
No, it's not. It's a lie.
Can rewind.
Ryan, people can
rewind.
Yes, Brian, I'm going to mute you. Everyone can go back and rewind. I didn't start yelling at you right immediately. I said, no, we're not going to do that. And I began to explain why. And then you continued to keep trying to interrupt me and keep trying to pretend that you were a better person and just wanted to do whatever's good. You were the one that kept interrupting me until you forced me to yell at you and shut you down. So why are you lying now? Please tell me when I manifested a demon.
I will start by saying, like, I am not better than anybody. I'm a piece of shit human being.
Okay, I'm going to mute you because you also suggested that humans aren't pieces of shit and humans have done all kinds of good things. But what I'm asking you is to answer the question, which is, please demonstrate when I manifested a demon and how you can prove that it was a demon.
Well, my proof is in the way you've been acting this entire conversation, when I think I've been very nice to you and I've been trying to be.
Okay, Brian, I'm going to mute you again. This is just, I'm just going to have fun embarrassing you for the rest of the time that we're on the call. I asked you, when did I manifest a demon and how can you prove? You can't prove by saying just because of the way you acted. That's like saying, because of the way it is. How do you know I manifested a demon?
Can you prove gravity 100%?
I'm sorry, Brian. How can you prove that I manifested a demon? Why are you asking me about gravity? Okay, I'm going to mute you because you're genuinely too stupid and dishonest. So first of all, I'm not claiming absolute certainty about anything, but I can demonstrate gravity instantly. Watch. That action is what science describes as gravity. Now that I've wasted time on your completely useless, pointless, irrelevant red herring, I would like for you to answer my question, which is, when did I summon a demon and how can you prove that it was a demon? Go.
Your attitude is completely insane when I've been nothing but nice, and you're absolutely
you're a liar, Brian. Okay, I'm going to mute you again. Brian, I'm going to ask you again the same question I keep asking you, and instead you're going to be a whiny little shithead and try to claim that I'm the problem here. I'm the problem, it's me, when you're the one that's not answering questions ever. So here's the question again. When did I summon a demon, and how can you prove it's a demon? Go.
I already did. As my point being is, you keep calling me names for no reason.
Yes. Brian,
really?
I don't have to have a demon to call you names. I don't have to summon a demon to call you names. So once again, how do you prove that I summoned a demon or manifested a demon?
That's what I can demonstrate. Just like you can demonstrate gravity, I can demonstrate that you're an absolute massive problem. When I'm trying, like, you sit here on the line and all.
Okay, so we're going to try this again. I didn't ask you to prove that I'm an absolute massive problem. I asked you to prove your claim that I manifested a demon. How can you prove that I manifested a demon? Go.
your attitude. Why is that hard? Like, you just dropped the book or what?
I'm sorry. I'm going to mute you again, Brian. See, listen really carefully. Somebody might say something, and you might think that they manifested a demon, and somebody else might say something, and you might think that person manifested a demon. Let's imagine that you could be wrong about whether or not both of them manifested a demon. How can the rest of us tell which one of those two people actually manifested a demon, or if maybe both of them did? But what is the criteria that we can use to determine that one of those people manifested a demon? That's the question.
Very simply, is when somebody calls in to try to actually have a nice conversation with disagreements, but try to come to some agreements, and you act like a petulant child the entire time screaming at me. You're a demon.
That's the process of a demon? Really? By what standard? By what standard?
How do you know that that's a demon versus an asshole?
Yeah, okay, that's fine. You want to just say you're an asshole? That's a demon to me.
No, sir. I'm sorry that you're incredibly stupid, Brian. But what I'm asking you here is,
okay. I'm
you
totally
are incredibly stupid. Either I'm an asshole or I summoned a demon, and you were convinced that I summoned or manifested a demon. How do you know that it was a demon and not just me? How do you know that it was a demon? How do you know that it was a demon and not just me being an asshole?
Because it's very simple. Being a demon is being an asshole. Only demonic.
Congratulations,
make you an
Brian.
asshole.
You are
so
the biggest demon here.
Asshole.
You are absolutely the biggest demon here. You have, by your own admission, manifested a demon right here on the show by being a big asshole. Goodbye, sir. It's just unbelievable. Hey, I'd like to call into your show because I didn't understand the joke you told, and maybe we could have a moment to pray for the people who are getting ready to be hit by the storm. Yeah, no, go start your own show, Brian. And when you sit there and don't answer questions, see how many people stick around. Because I just gave Brian a massive amount of time.
You really did.
Like a half hour almost. And at no point did he do any of the things that he said he was going to do. I'm just, and by the way, manifesting a demon and me being an asshole aren't the only two options. The third option is that you're wrong and that you actually are the problem here. Because if at any point you'd have said, oh, I didn't realize it was a joke, forget about the humans shouldn't go extinct thing. Let's talk about this issue. And then actually present a defense for what you're claiming. It could have been a great call. If you genuinely called because you wanted to have a conversation, come to agreement on something, then you should spend some time thinking about what methods and mechanisms you use to reach conclusions. Because if you're going to think that just calling you out on repeatedly failing and refusing to answer the question you're asked is justification to say that I manifested a demon, well, it's no wonder you're a Christian.
And, before we go into the next call, Matt, if he's sitting up here saying that humans shouldn't go extinct and he believes in the Bible, well, then the Noah's Ark story should show that clearly his God believes in human extinction, because that is one of the reasons why he flooded the earth. Because he was making, except with the exception of 2 human beings, he made the rest of humans, the humans that he created, extinct. So, by that, by all, for all intents and purposes, the God that Brian believes in is thinks that human beings should be extinct because they're not always amazing, because they don't always do great things, even according to the being that he believes created us.
It's really wild. Here was a chance for somebody to call and say, hey, here's why I believe this. But, you're like, oh, does anything happen that doesn't go according to God's plan? Oh, yes, lots of things happen that don't go according to God's plan. Wow. So God's not very good at planning. Because, like, if I knew everything about the future, I wouldn't be sitting here going, gosh, I wish the future would turn out differently. I really wish the universe would have turned out differently. Wait a minute. I'm the one that created the universe. I picked this universe over another one. I picked the universe where this thing happens, and I'm sitting here wishing that it didn't, or my plan was that something else would happen. It is absolutely kindergarten level theology to try to make excuses for that stuff. There's a reason why the people who actually understand theology don't address that question that way. But it's all right, Brian. You keep trying. We've got Levi calling from the Netherlands, basically wanting to compare a life led by Christian ethics to secular humanism. So, Levi, welcome. Oh, God, something's going on.
Oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, the microphone is giving all kinds of weird sounds and stuff. I think it may be okay now, but you're going to want to back away from the mic a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, so I did recently saw your debate with Andrew Wilson. I wanted to kind of talk about why you walked out of that.
There was no debate with Andrew Wilson because Andrew conceded my worldview, tried to shift the subject of the debate, and I'm not going and mocked trans suicide. So I'm not going to hang out and debate a liar.
Okay, well, can we have that debate that you were willing to have with him?
Of Christianity versus secular humanism? Sure, you can email the line and book a debate or get on one of the debate shows. Yeah.
Yeah, no, if we have a transgender debate.
Why would we have so you're calling in right now, and it says here that you typed in living a life guided by Christian ethics leads to better outcomes when compared to secular humanism. You immediately start, don't say anything for a minute. Oh, you hung up.
Wow.
Hey, you know what? I got your web address. I don't think you're actually in the Netherlands at all. Yeah. So it's funny to me that somebody calls in and says, oh, I saw your debate with Andrew Wilson. And I point out exactly why that didn't happen. And I did an entire video on it and even answered the question that he and all of his little fucking suck up followers thought I couldn't answer, which is, all I need is for Matt to explain to me how a man can be pregnant. Oh, that's easy. Trans men often have a functioning womb. So there's one way. But also, there's a lot of other odd anomalies where that could actually happen. Other than that, what difference does it make if it could happen, or if it did happen, or if it didn't happen? None of that's relevant to any of the stuff that we were talking about with regard to Christianity, secular humanism, or anything else. Whether a man can get pregnant is completely irrelevant to whether or not human beings deserve dignity and rights. If that's too difficult, if that's too difficult for you, Andrew, and your little sycophant suck-ups that desperately want to hook up with you, I'm sorry, but that's just the way it is.
And I would even go so far as to say that it makes secular humanism inherently better than Christianity, if by that logic.
Yeah,
that's what they're going on.
This is and that's the prime example of the caller that we just interacted with. So I show up to a debate with the opponent supposed to defend topic A, and they try to switch to topic B. And in doing so, they also decide to mock trans suicide and other things like that. So I get up and leave. After that, even though it's been a year and some change, his fans keep showing up all over the place. Every video, there's comments, every show they call in. And so just like this one calls in and tells the call screener they want to compare a Christian worldview to a secular humanist worldview. They want to have the debate that Andrew Wilson and I were supposed to have, except they're also a big liar. They didn't want to have that debate. They wanted to have a debate about the trans stuff. They didn't call in and say, I want a debate Matt on gender stuff. It's so funny because you guys don't have to lie. If Andrew had booked a debate on gender issues, I'd have stayed there and done the debate on gender issues. But he didn't. And if you would have wanted a debate on gender issues, I'd have done it. Don't get me wrong. I think you're better off calling in the Transatlantic Call-In show on Thursday and talking to actual trans folks who can give you not just their lived experience, but have spent more time studying all of the data and know which studies are BS and know how to address all those things much better than I do. But instead, you're not actually interested in a real debate. you're not actually interested in engaging with the people who know this stuff the best. You are a troll trying to call in and get some kind of cheap shot. And you guys are all doing it in defense of a very narrow, bigoted view of Christianity. And every time you do, I sit here as a secular humanist with complete moral superiority to the liars and trolls that are trying to defend Christianity. Where are the decent Christians? Where are the ones who are not ashamed of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Where are the ones that are prepared at all times, as the Bible instructs them, to provide a reason for the faith that's within them? Where are the ones who are going to call in and say, here is the reason. Here are the trees. Here's the powerful work that's been done in my life and how I know it was done by God and not merely happenstance or my own actions or somebody else's action. Where are those people? You want to know why Matt gets all irritated and starts yelling at Brian? Well, it's not just because there's a big delay that forces us all to talk over each other. It's that caller after caller after caller after caller is either as stupid as Marjorie Taylor Greene, as dishonest as Andrew Wilson, or as weak on their theology as any average Sunday school kid. Now, I do debates, and I've debated sincere theologians, and I'm happy to. I get it. I don't expect them to be calling it. I have friends that do that. I don't expect, like, my friendly acquaintances that I like, the people that I've done debates with multiple, I don't expect them to call into the show. We would like to produce some content together, but I would like for theists to call in, especially when I've got guests like Mandisa here. You guys are completely wasting Mandisa's time. Mandisa's here.
I'm having a great time here. I'm having a great time. It's interesting.
Yes, but you like watching you like watching me struggle and suffer.
Matt,
let me watch my friend get all riled up. All right, we do have more calls. We just don't have more theistic calls right now, so we'll go ahead because these people have been incredibly patient waiting. Sean runs the They Them in Arizona has a question about ethnic religions. So welcome, Sean. You're on with Mandisa and Matt.
Hey.
Hello.
So I was Jewish, and that's a religion based more on ethnicity than typically your typical universal religions, and that's typically what I'm asking today is that should we treat ethnic religions such as Judaism and Druze and Yazidis differently from universal religions such as Christianity, Islam, and Buddhism?
Well, I would argue, and I'm sorry, Matt, I would argue that Christianity is not a universal religion. Where did I'm curious as to, because and Islam is actually an offshoot of Christianity and Judaism. Judaism claims there is a God. Does it not?
Some Jews believe there's a God, some don't. That's what makes it an ethnic religion. It's more based on
the Jews. So Judaism is a religion and generally viewed as an ethnic group. There's equivocation fallacy there because we're using the same name for two different things. One is the religion, which, by the way, even within Judaism, you've got, Reform, conservative, Orthodox, ultra-Orthodox, Hasidic. Mm-hmm. You have varieties within that are all different Jewish religions. And then there's Jewish as in the heritage. Those two things aren't the same. And so the religions should all be treated the same, which is if they make claims, those claims had better be testable and falsifiable. Otherwise, we should reject them. And then the ethnic connection has no relevance to me at all.
Mm.
Now, I will say that there are other ethnic groups that do use their religions to form like communities per se. That
Yeah.
is, that is something that happens worldwide. So that was a little, that I think that's what needs clarity. Because you're only speaking about Judaism, or you just being Jewish or being raised culturally Jewish.
I was raised culturally Jewish, and my family has since
Your phone broke up a minute. You might want to repeat the last
Yeah.
sentence or two.
my family has been moving in towards a branch of Judaism, Chabad, that I don't really agree with or believe in. So, and I keep trying to explain that I have left the religion. I've left the religious aspect of my ethnicity, and I've converted to Christianity. I used to be a Christian, and since then I left Christianity. So, and I'm wondering if Judaism should be treated differently from all other religions that you typically convert to. So, compared to Judaism, which technically you're born into.
So I need to know what you mean by treated differently, because to me, there's Judaism is the religion, and then Jewish is essentially the heritage label. Those two things, apart from a loose tie in a potential historical claim of them being God's chosen people, that's the only distinction of why they're a group at all. And the regional stuff, it doesn't matter. Like, what do you mean treated differently? Every religious claim from every religion needs to be demonstrated, or it shouldn't be believed. But I'm happy to believe that somebody is of the same ethnicity as their direct ancestors. I mean, those aren't the same things. So what is it we're trying to treat differently, and how?
More.
I'm sorry, your phone did that thing again.
Treating
I'm not able to understand anything you're saying right now.
You just treat, Judaism is kind of seen as a race, and that you can't really escape from your race.
I didn't say you
really
could. I'm asking about the religion.
And you might be brought up into religion. There might be like cultural aspects. You know how there's like
I was brought up in religion,
cultural
but
identities.
I was brought up in religion. I left it. I have friends who are Jewish. They left the religion. They're still Jewish in heritage, but they're not Jews with religion. So what's the reason to conflate the two, and why do you want to treat the religion differently just because there's an people trying to combine to tie the ethnic aspect to it?
I personally want to leave because I don't believe it's true.
Okay. Why you can do that?
I
still
did.
wondering what you mean
years ago. I converted to Christianity.
Yeah. Once again, your phone has gone into.
Yeah. When you said something interesting, Sean, you said you can't escape your race. But we often find it very interesting that this is the same argument, or this is the same thing that is used to try to squash arguments, especially when Black folks talk about the issues that we go through when it comes to issues of race and racism in this country. Everyone wants to erase. Everybody wants to, they all want to not discuss the whole race aspect. But it's very interesting that you made that comment about Jews being a race, and it not necessarily. I mean, it's sort of tied into the religion and the culture, but almost not necessarily as well. And it sounds like there is a sect of Judaism that sounds conservative and fundamental that you don't agree with. Is that the case?
Yeah, that's the phase of Judaism. My mom has converted into Hasidic Levi Judaism, and I don't believe that type of Judaism at all. I don't believe the Rebbe was a Messiah, and I just don't want. I have found my own path for religion a while ago. I found Buddhism. I found animism. I have found Unitarianism.
Have you found anything that's
I'm just
true?
like my family. My family considers them one and the same. They're deep into their Judaism.
I'm just wondering, you went through a bunch of stuff. You found this, you found this. Did you find anything that, like, any religious views that were true?
Christian, I found that wasn't true, and I left it.
But you still feel very much tied to your Jewish heritage and the cultural
Yeah, very
aspect
much
of it.
so. Yeah, because
Okay, that's not uncommon to a lot of different ethnic groups, though.
yeah, I'm just like it's not tree as a religion. It's tree as an ethnicity with my family, and I also see it as just a religion, which has its faults and it has its truth and it has its benefits and disadvantages like any other religion. I don't believe it's true at all. I believe there is as much bullcrap in Judaism as there is in Christianity.
I'm really, I don't know what to say, Sean, because I'm not quite sure. We've addressed the question because you're like, should ethnic religion?
I think you guys answered it. I think you guys
Okay.
You summed it up.
Okay.
All right. Well, I hope it's helpful. I'm never sure if I answered a question if we didn't get to some understanding. But anyway, thanks, Sean. I hope you sort it out. But you're not beholden to any religion just because your family's in it, whether it's viewed as an ethnic thing or not.
Right.
Okay, I guess that's that. I'm ready for a fun, cool call that's going to be beneficial, and that's Jonathan's pronouns are he, him. He's calling from Texas and wants to explain why God created evil. Jonathan, before you explain why God created evil, by evil, do you mean evil as the abstract concept, or like evil as a concrete thing that exists?
I definitely think evil would probably mean more on the side of a abstract concept or a concept. I'm not sure the differentiation between abstract and concept there. Like not real is kind of what I'd say. But
yeah,
at the same time,
and so you're saying that God, when you say God created evil, all you're saying is that the category of things that we describe as evil were permitted by God for some reason. Is that accurate?
Yes. Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, yeah, then please go ahead. Explain it to us.
My basic argument here would be that in order for experience to exist, there has to be an opposite for everything. And so, like, no matter what it is, there seems to be an opposite. So for good to exist and be called good, there must be evil, but in reality, it would be a spectrum, So it's subjective, right? Open to human interpretation. But I think God created the world to allow for as many possible experiences. Does that make sense?
Okay.
It actually doesn't. Because at least from where I'm sitting, the God you believe in has this perfect word, right? It's supposed to whatever you define as God or his word it is supposed to be very clear.
Or
So
maybe
I would
maybe not. Is
imagine.
Jonathan, I don't even know if Jonathan's we don't even know what religion Jonathan is advocating for,
Yeah, what religion are you referring to?
or what God, I guess.
So
Yeah, what God?
so I
Yeah.
wouldn't say that I define as any religion. I think that there are truths to religion, but I think it gets corrupted pretty quickly. I think that the religion, starts with the founder, like Jesus. I think that I'm on board with most everything about Jesus if I just take the four Gospels by themselves and realize that it was written by four anonymous men. I can understand that this word is not perfect, but perhaps there is a truth in this world that is perfect, and that's what is referred to as the word. But I don't think the Bible is because obviously I listen to your show a lot, and I know that there's tons of contradictions, tons of issues with the Bible, and I'm in full agreement there that it's not the direct instruction from God, but I do think that there are instructions within it that could be from God, that humans
How could you
spoke and
tell?
God spoke into them.
How can you
I would
tell which
say,
instructions are from God and which ones aren't?
it's the same way I think that the secular humanists do. It's through discernment, empathy towards others. We have an
I'm a secular
understanding.
humanist. I'm a secular humanist, Jonathan, and I have no way of telling which things come from God and which ones don't. So when you say the same way secular humanists do, I'm not aware of any secular humanist methodology for discerning what messages come from a God.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't. Again, God is kind of hard to define.
That's not my
So
problem either. I'm not the one advocating for something that's hard to define.
it's true, and I wouldn't necessarily say that I'm advocating for everyone to believe in God. I would say that I'm advocating that there can be, enough good that comes from calling whatever source it is God, and following the discernment and the empathy that is within each human
Whatever
being
source
that we
for
can
what?
see.
Like if you
Can you
can't
say that
tell
again? You cut out.
if you can't, yeah, if you can't tell which statements came from a God, how can you tell which things God is the source of?
Well, so I guess in the beginning of the call, you'll remember that I said evil also comes from God. So I do think that all of this that we see is God, the appearance, the matter, and that which is behind the matter. So I think it's all God. So that's why I think
Why do you think
God
there's something
created both
behind the
visions.
matter? Why do you think there's something behind the matter?
What's in the empty space between the atoms?
Isn't it empty?
Like, right. I would say, yeah, it's probably, I don't know what to call it. It would be the essence of nothingness.
And nothingness doesn't have an essence, and emptiness isn't a thing. So you're looking at emptiness and suggesting that's what a God is? A thing without
I would
properties?
say, yeah, I would say it would be the original source.
So everything comes
So
from nothing.
Yeah, I know. It sounds a bit nonsensical, and that's why I think both atheists and theists, without even calling it anything, they worship it in one way or another.
Oh,
So whatever
fuck
it is
off,
that you're interested
Jonathan.
in.
oh
Don't, you
no.
were doing so good, and now you're going to try and both sides this as if you're in the superior position, both atheists and theists. Look, my position as an atheist is that I'm not convinced that a God exists. If you are convinced that a God exists, it's up to you to demonstrate that. And so far, what you've done is say God is difficult to define and maybe the first nothing that caused things, and you understand that sounds ridiculous. So you don't have a definition or an explanation for God. You believe something that you can't describe or defend, and yet you're going to throw shade at us?
Well, I didn't mean to throw shade.
But also going back to your original point about God creating evil, what would be, and especially if it's so subject to interpretation, then how do you know how can you say what is evil and what is good? Because what
Well,
someone, but maybe what someone would consider evil, someone else might consider good. So be considered good. So how are we to determine which one is good and which one is evil? And that God God mandated it that way through this supposedly perfect word that seems to be really hard to define.
Yeah, I would say that, like, I think that God is figuring it out as we figure it out. I think it's perfect just because it exists, but I think that as we figure it out, the horizon is boundless. There is likely a day in the human horoscope where we will have perfect peace and have heaven on earth. It starts with each one of us.
Wait, but if God created all of these things to be perfect, then why would he have to figure it out? What's the purpose of that?
So because I think God is the totality, I think that being on the earth, being in the universe is being in the organism of God. And this is how he appears. And we're a part of it, and we are it, and it all blends into one. So it's like God is moving through time and space, and as we figure it out,
confused as many human beings by that. If God is still figuring it out, then that means that God is confused,
right? Because we are confused. But as we figure it out, I mean, it's like evolution. It's the evolution of God. And because God is not at a place where God is infinity. So the evolution of God can go into infinity, and it already has. Who knows how many worlds there are out there? The multiverse theory, that's also God. We're connected with that, even if it doesn't appear that we are on our timeline.
Okay, so at what point is God going to define or actually explain what is good and what is evil then?
Well, when he comes down in human form, like Jesus, or the Buddha, or Krishna, or what have you,
or just whatever God. So there's no.
I think there are many Christs, and we know them when we see them because they spread the purest love, just like Jesus did. He said, love your neighbor as yourself. Love God, who is yourself, as yourself.
You said you don't subscribe to the Christian God. So which version of good and evil should we follow?
I think it goes beyond the identification with a religion or a philosophy or a political sphere. It goes beyond.
Because we have to. I mean, I'm sorry.
It's in the middle.
With all due respect, what middle is that?
It's where everyone comes into agreement and you finally have equality. There's no difference between anyone because everything becomes pure love when you don't pick sides.
But what, Jonathan, by what set of principles are we defining them? Is it strictly by divine or by the principles of a God, or by what human beings, the laws and also the principles that we establish as a people that at least determine that we try to treat each other as good as we possibly can, whether we believe in a God or not?
So I didn't really understand if there was a question there for me.
No,
I have
again.
I want to let Mandisa get to her point. But I'm wondering, you keep saying stuff about God. How do you know any of this stuff about God?
I think that we can each look within and see the proof ourselves. And I think that the proof is the background of consciousness. You have the thoughts, the feelings, the memories.
Jonathan, what is the justification for you saying you know anything at all about God, including that there is a God?
It's direct observation within my being.
Okay.
There's no other way
I don't
to
know.
see it.
How do you directly observe within your being? Because I can't directly observe within my being. I don't even know what that means to directly observe within my being. But tell me how to directly observe within my being and what I should look for in order to know God.
So I would say it's like the gaps between the atoms. What are the gaps between the thoughts in your consciousness?
Nothing.
Yes. That's exactly what my point is. That's what God is.
Okay, goodbye.
In my
Goodbye.
experience.
God is nothing, and so is the point of this call. Goodbye.
You're right. That's what I got. That God is nothing. God is a void. God does not exist.
You can't call in. Now, first of all, by the way, that's exactly the sort of call at the start of the show that I said I didn't want. I don't want your garbage, esoteric, untestable, unprovable God. Let me look inside. And I think what God wants is this. And when we'll know when God manifests himself, like Jesus or Krishna or whatever. You have no reason to think any of those are God manifesting himself. You have no reason to think there is a God. You have no reason to think that this God can manifest itself. You just have the things that you prefer for no fucking reason at all. And you're convinced that they're good. Oh, it's all about consciousness where the universe is. Literally, you are the fucking caller that I said don't call me. And yet I still tried to sit here and go through all that. And you had, what's the word? Nothing. That's your favorite word. And that's what you had. Nothing. No good definition of a God, no good evidence for a God, no good criteria by which we could judge a God, no good reason to think that anything you said was of any value to anyone ever. We are all dumber having listened to it. Oh, there's a God. How do you know? Well, you look inside yourself and you look at the space between the atoms where there's nothing, and that's God. Put down the bong, dude. You don't have to call everything God. You don't have to call anything God. So wild to me. I mean, if you had something substantive, cool. It could be like, hey, I know I may not have good enough evidence, but when I look at the world, like for example, when I try to look, what I meant when I said that I was looking inside myself is that I was introspective in a metaphorical sense, looking at the way I think of things. And it baffles me that I can think of things in this way if there's not some governing guidance behind it. That would at least be something we could then discuss. It'd be like, hey, how do we tell the difference between thoughts like that being grounded or rooted in some kind of truth versus thoughts like that just being speculative nonsense? And I tell you what, this is how I know I'm not God. Because either I'm not God or I hate myself. Because why would God, if he actually wants to enjoy himself, arrange to have people call in to say nothing? And then when called out on the nothing, suggest that, yes, that's what I mean. Nothing. That's the nothing I mean. As if you said something profound. It's not even a deepity. A deepity is the term that Dan Dennett's daughter, I think, coined for when somebody says something like love is all you need, because to the extent that it's true, it's trivial. And to the extent that it's impressive, it's false. And so, oh yeah, love is all you need. Yeah, no, I need food and other stuff as well. Food and oxygen. As a matter of fact, I can probably survive with food and oxygen and not love. But I get what you mean. And it sounds profound. And so when you start talking about the space between the atoms, that just, dude, what if we're just like a glob of grease that a giant flicked off of its finger and we're all heading towards the floor? Apologies to William S. Burroughs, who said many other things like that much more brilliantly than I'm going to do off the top of my head. That's absolutely me stealing from Burroughs. If you haven't read Burroughs, I wouldn't recommend necessarily starting with Naked Lunch, but it's up there. All right, we got more people on hold. Tim in California, pronouns are him, has a question about bigoted extremists. So, Tim, you're on with Matt and Mandisa.
Hi, Tim.
Hey, guys. Thanks for letting me call.
Of course.
I'm wondering if it is a good thing to try to generalize a set of, let's say a set of red flags that we would say are a reason for cutting off extremist, bigoted families, or if it's better to just kind of say each individual should really, feel that out for themselves, and we should just kind of trust each person to make that call.
How would you not let people make that call? I don't get to cut somebody else out of somebody else's life.
Well, I also think that it could. I think it just depends on the actions that the individual or individuals are committing. If extremists are causing severe harm to people, then it is absolutely justified to cut them off. Is that what you're referring to, or is it just their ideology?
No, I totally agree
which
with
could be
you.
harmful in itself.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you that there are many, it is kind of an obvious thing. There are many instances of harmful, bigoted family where individuals who have those relationships should, cut them off. But I've also experienced instances of, friends, relations, even just people who you don't really know that well and don't understand the situation, can't put themselves in your shoes, saying, "Wow, it's family. Family is so important. I can't believe you turned your back on family." And I can understand. I can understand turning your back on family.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. I mean,
Right.
one of my former co-hosts and a former ACA president, Jen Peoples, originally clued me into her saying of your family when you act like family. And I don't care if we're blood related. I care about whether or not people act like family. But I'll tell you this, I have people that I absolutely actively despise, and I would never work with them again. I could rattle off a list of 5-6 names right now. You'd know every one of them, and you would be surprised by probably 4 out of 6 of them. And so would some of my friends, because despite the fact that there are people that I won't work with, I've never told anybody, don't work with that person. And I've never told anybody, if you work with that person, I won't work with you. I may have that view on certain things, like I won't come and do your convention if a certain person is speaking. But what I don't do is say, if you want me, you need to drop that person. I just politely decline without saying anything else about it, because I'm not the ultimate arbiter of who should work with people. I've made no bones about any number of things. And so I think I can extend that to the kind of things that you're asking about, which is, I have people in my family that I don't want to spend any time with, but I will on occasion to keep the peace and, to try to be the better person, because I may not value my relationship with that person, but I value my relationship with the other people around them. And so, we all do things to keep the peace on occasion. But there are exceptions. And there are people that I would cut out of my life, and I would tell my other friends, look, I appreciate the fact that you want to continue a relationship with this person, but I will not be around them. I will not interact with them, and don't invite us both to the same thing. Matter of fact, it's fine if you just don't invite me, because I don't want to be in a position of giving an ultimatum. You should invite whoever you want. But know that if I show up at the same place as that person, I will be leaving. And
right.
So far, it's not really been a problem.
Yeah.
Like
But
there are
also on
things I
that
don't,
same
don't get to do.
side, I'm sorry. I agree with Matt. Right, I do agree that I also try to be that person who does not try to dissuade people from engaging with someone unless I would just say be very, very careful, especially if this person has a proven track record of causing harm to people, whether that is physically, emotionally, or what have you. I think it is important for people to make those decisions. However, I think it's also important that if you know of individuals who are extremely, they can, wherever they go, you know that there is going to be some sort of issue, then I think it's also good to at least not have that person in the presence of other people because you know they're going to be disruptive, especially if they're an extremist.
Right. Yeah.
It is important to take into consideration those whom you know could possibly be impacted by those people. And I think it is good to make a concerted effort not to engage them and to make sure that other people don't have to experience them if at all possible. Now, if other folks want to make that decision, then fine. But if you know that this person or these individuals can cause severe harm and also are of a detriment to you, then it definitely is. It's worth considering distancing yourself, surrounding yourself with people whom you know you are going to be in a productive space with, and continue to communicate with those folks because you don't have to deal with certain. I think we can agree we don't have to deal with certain family members just we are related to them by blood. I always say you can choose your family, and so it's not necessarily an obligation for you to deal with especially toxic family members if you don't want to, or toxic people if you absolutely don't want to.
Yeah, that's solid, and I both know where you're coming from and think it's that even though it can be tricky sometimes, and you can be deeply conflicted about it.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Especially the second order effects. The people who know both of you and feel badly, feel poorly about this strain. I still think there's justification for doing it, and not everyone might be aware of all the interpersonal factors that are causing this, but it can just be very difficult.
Yeah. I don't know that I have anything else to add at this point because it's a difficult situation. For any of these, you're going to have to make up your mind where your boundaries are going to be, where you're going to draw the lines. There are things that I'll put up with from people that I'm close to that aren't ideal. So I have family members who definitely aren't going to vote the way that I wish they would vote. And I don't cut them off just for doing that, even though they are absolutely voting against their own best interests and against the interests and well-being and welfare of people that I love and care about, that they don't love and care about. The reason I don't immediately cut somebody off for that is because I don't view their vote as them trying to instantiate the harm that they're actually voting for. I get it. Some of them, maybe abortion is their one and only issue, but their view isn't, I want to harm pregnant people. It is, I want to save babies. And so I'm optimistic that there may still be some discussion that could be had that could change people's minds. On the other hand, people who are actively, openly bigoted, people who are hateful towards the LGBTQIA plus community, people that are racist. And I don't mean racist in the implicit sense of, hey, I'm going to vote for a racist system, or I'm going to do this thing. You know, I like mandatory minimums, even though they are misused and racist. If that's, I'm not saying I like that. I'm saying the person is saying that. That is very different from the overt racist, bigoted stuff. There's a difference between somebody who's a little clueless, who means well, but is going to support somebody who's awful, and somebody who's like, you know, a card-carrying KKK member. Those are not in the same category. You are free to cut both of them out of your life anytime you want, and probably for good reason. But each of us is going to be making a decision about how much BS we're going to tolerate, because, in part, because we all know that we've all got some of our own BS as well. Like, ain't none of us right about everything, and there are, you know, views that we hold that we're like, oh, here's where I draw the line, but no further. And recognizing that you've been wrong about the lines before, and that you're probably wrong about some of them now, then for me, the real characteristic is someone willing to have a conversation rooted in sound arguments, supported by evidence that is derived from goals of actually improving the world, not just thinking they're going to improve the world without any justification. Once we've established that somebody's heart is essentially in the right place, metaphorically, there's a lot more slack I'm willing to cut them than the people who clearly demonstrate that, yeah, they're just hateful bigots.
Makes sense. Thanks for letting me call in, guys.
Yep, my pleasure. Hope that helps. Take care, Tim. All right. I'll apologize to everyone, including Mandisa, ahead of time. I'm going to try and take this call here. Bob, pronouns are he, him, from California, is calling in to ask me why I bully people. So, hey, Bob.
Hey, Matt.
Hello.
What do you count as bullying? Because when I hear, like, when I ask somebody a question and they refuse, when I ask somebody a question and they refuse to answer it, I think holding their feet to the fire to answer a question. I don't think that's bullying, but if you do, then I definitely do that.
A little bit nicer. Like, if anyone treated you the way you treat these callers, you'd be so mad.
No, that's actually not true, because we know that's not true, because when somebody's asked, when I'm asked to answer a question, I answer the question.
Say that one more time, sorry.
When I'm asked a question, my goal is to actually answer the question. And since I'm always here to try to have the best conversation and present the best evidence, I'm not avoiding questions.
Yeah, but I still think you could be a little bit more kind, especially knowing there's a delay.
I know that there's a delay. I work through the delay a lot. But how many times should I ask the same question before I'm allowed to be irritated, in your view?
That's a good question. I don't know, but I still think.
I don't know. I don't either.
Yeah.
Have you tried doing a show? Have you tried doing a show like this for 20 years with dishonest callers refusing to answer the question over and over again, so they can troll and put clips up so they can get clicks? Have you done that?
Well, I think.
Have you done
that?
that?
A lot of people are. No, but that doesn't
then
mean I still can't.
Maybe. Oh, now you're just going to call me a fucking douche when I'm just sitting here asking you what your experience is in this?
And I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I'm going to step in here, Matt. Bob, I'm sorry. Bob, what is your definition of bullying? Because bullying does take on many forms, in which usually people are the you know, the perpetrators are, you know, those doing the bullying, the initiators.
Yeah.
How
Someone
in
is
this case is Matt being a bully when people are calling into the show?
Treating someone as less than.
What if they are?
I mean, yeah, that makes sense coming from you.
Yeah.
Wow.
What see,
Really?
because when I view someone as potentially less than, I'm never summarizing the entirety of somebody's character. I've talked about that many times as well. But in any particular discussion, if one person is trying to move the conversation forward and the other one is sitting there stalling it and trying to troll and waste time and actually wasting the money that is donated to the show, because every second you're on hold and every second you're on this call is a second that we pay for. And so, since you can't tell me at what point it's okay for me to be frustrated, maybe you should go off and make a show for a while and call me in about 20 years and let me know when you figured out when it's okay to be frustrated. I don't know why you're trying to talk over me. It's never going to work out for you. Ever. So why are you trying it when you know it's not going to work out? Instead, why don't you just let me finish? Why don't you just let me finish my thought? And then you can respond, because what I asked you was, how can we tell when it's okay to be frustrated, when my frustration is warranted? And your answer was that you don't know. Cool. Call me back when you do know. Until then, your tone policing is just vapid speculation that you yourself admit you don't have any grounds to come to a conclusion on.
If I ever was frustrated, I would never act the way you do towards the callers, even if I disagree.
Congratulations, Bob. I'm glad that you think you know how you would or wouldn't act, but I don't care, because I'm not tuning into your show and I never asked you for your thoughts or opinion. And since you can't tell me what the criteria is for when it's okay for me to express my frustration, why should I care what you say?
I just told you should never act the way you do.
I disagree with you. Prove that I should never act the way I do.
You said prove it?
Yes.
Yes.
I mean, how am I supposed to prove that?
It's not my fault. I'm not the one calling into shows making claims that I can't prove. Maybe you should work on that, Bob. See you later. See, I'm on the call in side here, where people call in and you're going to make a claim. And your claim can be, there is a loving God. Your claim can be, God hates homosexuals. Your claim can be, Matt's a big old nasty bully. But if you can't prove it, okay.
Right. That's actually, I just see it as an insult to people who are actually bullied, people who were bullied, people who were intimidated out of, we're looking at a big old bully who is running for office. I mean, let's just be real about that. I'm like, you want to compare this to that? Like, seriously.
It's wild, because anybody who calls in and actually engages on the topic, they don't seem to think that I bullied them at all. You know who feels like they got bullied? Trolls and people who were incredibly cocky to come in and pretend that I'm the stupid one, I don't understand theology, and they're here to educate all of the rest of us. The people who start by treating us as if we're less than, proving that they are. Not less than with regard to human beings. I'm a humanist. I value humans entirely. That doesn't mean that I value every human being in every circumstance as equivalent.
Right.
I want equal opportunity. Some people are faster than others. Some people are smarter than others. Some people are better informed than others, even if they are colloquially more stupid than others. The number of subjects on which I'm an absolute idiot is staggering. But the number of those subjects that I try to talk about on my shows is zero, or as close to zero as possible. Every now and then I stray out into the fray and go beyond what I should. But if you're just going to say, oh, why do you bully people? Well, to the extent that anybody ever gets bullied, it's because they are dishonest interlocutors, because everybody who calls in, no matter how mad I was just a second ago, every call starts off the same. Let's tell me what you believe and why. Let's make some clarity on definitions, present your case. And when we have questions, we're going to interrupt to ask, because that's the nature of the show. Because if we don't, you guys will talk for 5 or 10 minutes without saying anything. And when we try to go back to the beginning, then you'll talk for another 5 or 10 minutes. And that's not the way the show's going to run. You're not going to call in and turn this into a prayer circle. You're not going to call in and get a minute of silence. Just make your case or don't. And if you can't, you didn't have to call in. And if you don't like the way things are done, you didn't have to call in, and you don't have to watch. You can watch and you can call in. And I guarantee you, if you go talk to people who are genuine believers, who are willing to engage, people that I've had genuine disagreements, like Blake, Fan, any number of those guys over there, they think I'm wrong. None of them think I'm an idiot. All right, one of them probably thinks I'm an idiot, but that's fine. But they're not out there going, oh, look, Matt got this part of theology wrong. He doesn't know anything about what he's talking. Or Matt's just a bully. No. It's a call-in show. You want to book a debate? Book a debate. That's my job. You can actually go to the website. Probably a good time to say that. You can go to QAnon.com/theline debates and apply to be on one of the mini debate shows. And I'm not the only one that you would have to debate. You could debate on any number of people because there's a lot of shows here on the line. Great opportunity. Mandisa and I are here tonight. Tomorrow at 2:00 is the Transatlantic Call-In Show with Luxander and Josie. Arden's producing that one. And on Friday and Saturday, Jimmy's doing Cus I Wanna's. On Friday, he's doing one with Forrest at 6 p.m. And Saturday, he's doing one with Arden at 6 p.m. And then on the Sunday show during the daytime, it's me and Paul Entz. I'm the luckiest guy in the world. I get to do a lot of shows with people I greatly admire, respect, and love. And my friends. So Mandisa's on, Paul's going to be on, Andrew Seidel's going to be on. I get to do shows with Promise. I get to do shows with Jimmy. I get to do shows with Arden. Aron, Erika, Aaron, all these people on this network are phenomenal. And I don't even get to work with all of them that often. Monday's show is Skeptalk. That's 6 p.m. It's going to be Erika and Dr. Aron Adair. And Tuesday's Chewed Gum next week is going to be Eve and Alyssa at 6 p.m. And then I'll be back. And it doesn't say who's going to be here because I think we're...
No, we have not. A problem came up again. So...
But is he going to do it on the 19th? Because I wanna?
I don't know yet. Okay.
Sorry to be coding with the producer there, but yeah, we're getting ready to have some folks on the show. But I genuinely care. If there's somebody out there who's not just like, an Andrew Wilson suck up, who's like, oh, you're terrible, whatever. If there's an issue about how I do stuff, cool. Let's sort it out. But if you're just like, oh, you're a bully. Okay, cool. Thanks for your thought. I will continue on. Tim in Wisconsin, pronouns are he, him, as a theist, calling in with a farmer's perspective. So yeah, I'm welcome, Tim. I don't know what you're calling about, but we're eager to hear it.
All right. Well, my first question might not be exactly what you're expecting, but do you know the name, or do you have any stories about your great grandfather?
What?
I don't know for sure. I know that around that time frame, one of my great grandfathers started one of the first three churches that formed the Southern Baptist Convention, but I'm not sure how many greats ago that was.
Six greats. That will be your grandfather, and then your great. So 5 greats, and then your grandfather.
I don't know how many greats it was for that person, but that's the only of all the greats.
Okay.
That's like the great before that one and the great after that one. I don't know any stories about them at all, but one of them in there.
Do you have a name? Do you have a name?
I have it in a document for somebody who did some genealogy stuff, but I don't know it off the top of my head. I know there's a Greenberry Dillahunty in my family, which I just love that name, but I don't know any stories about Greenberry.
Nice. But what I'm saying is, okay.
Hello?
I certainly
sorry.
don't.
Yeah, I'm here. So what you're saying is he didn't exist.
What?
No, I didn't say anything like that. I think I see exactly
okay, well,
where
but
you're
if you don't
going.
have any evidence,
Hang on.
Wait,
I think I see
what?
exactly where you're going, and this
Oh
is
my
a
God.
big line of fallacious thought, because A, I didn't say that he didn't exist, and B, I didn't say that I didn't have any evidence. You asked me about a specific person and whether I knew any stories about them, and I don't. But that's separate from me saying I have no evidence of them, which isn't what I said and isn't true. And it's different from me saying that they don't exist. Meanwhile, as an atheist, I'm not saying God doesn't exist, and I'm not saying God doesn't exist because of a lack of evidence. I'm saying I don't believe that a God exists because there's a lack of evidence. Those are different things.
Okay. So what I'm trying to understand is, you're saying, but what I'm saying is, so you know he existed, right? You know he had exists. So there's something within you that says, I know that he exists.
Who?
Your great grandfather. He had to have existed, right?
Yes,
And
to the extent.
what is the evidence?
Hang on.
So
If you ask me a question, let me fucking answer it.
Okay, that's fine. Sorry.
So, once again, the question that you asked is what? Hello?
But what I'm saying, but you don't have the name of, so he didn't, so what is the evidence that he existed?
So, I have parents and they have parents, and the overwhelming evidence of how procreation works suggests that I, in fact, have a great, however many greats grandfather. I can do research. For example, I don't remember my great grandmother's maiden name, but I can go do research and find out my great grandmother's maiden name, or I know one of their maiden names. One of the other ones I don't know, but I could go do research and do it. I have family members who know. I can look up birth certificates and other things, so I can find out some things. But even if I couldn't find one, we know that those ancestors had parents. And so even if we know nothing about them, the fact that they had parents is just accepted.
Correct. So what I'm saying is there is an I that's within us that exists. And that's because of our genealogy that's here. Correct?
There's an I within us that exists, and it's because of our genealogy. I mean, I exist because the people before me had sex.
Are you not the evidence?
Why
of
are
those
you
people?
fucking asking me again?
Sorry, I'm looking on you in the mute, and sometimes I'm watching your mouth.
Turn off the show. It's on turn off the show. It's on a 30-second delay, and pay attention to the fucking phone.
Makes sense. Okay. And then it cuts out sometimes. I apologize.
Yeah. Now I don't know what you were asking. Go ahead.
So what I'm saying is there's an I. So do we know the nature of the I that exists? That right here in the present moment, the I that exists, that's beating the heart, that there's the noise that's in our heart that sparks, that's beating our heart, the source of that. Correct?
My
That's
heart,
the I in
my
the five elements. This is how we are existing in the present moment. The present moment.
Wow.
So why do you care about the great grandfather then if we're in the moment? How are you relating that? How are you relating that?
What I was trying to get back to is the present, because the I that exists is in the present moment.
No. So the I, as in I, myself, is an abstract.
I'm not the
Oh my
body.
God, would you shut the
You-
fuck up? Every time I open my mouth to talk, you jump in to say some shit. Do you want to learn or not?
Yes, I do.
Cool. The thing that I refer to as I or me, the self, which is much clearer than continually, repeatedly saying I, the self is an abstract concept. It is a label that I put on this package of matter and energy in motion, this particular pattern. It does not, that concept does not cause my heart to beat. The fact that my heart beats provides blood to the rest of my body, including the brain, which produces the conscious awareness that allows me to make that assessment. What are you saying the self is, and how do you know?
Do you listen to NDE experiences?
I've
And
heard
like
many
they
of
explain
them.
that I am not the body. The I am is not the body.
So they don't actually demonstrate that at all. The experiences take place after an event and are the brain attempting to make sense of a set of circumstances where it doesn't have sufficient information to reach a conclusion. So you can't reach a conclusion that because somebody had a near-death experience, that it tells you anything at all about the self, because you don't get the report on that experience until after it occurred and after the brain has made up a story to fill that time.
So are you suggesting that there's no viewer of that experience?
Well, there's a viewer of that experience, just like there's a viewer for any experience. The sort of Cartesian theater of the mind is how we picture that. But there's still a self that experiences, there's still a self that is telling that story. Whether or not the story that the self tells is accurate is another question.
Correct. Well, correct. But I'm correct. So I guess what I'm trying to is the earth. And I want to get back to the earth, fire, the 5 elements of how we're existing in this moment: the earth, the water, the fire, and the air, and the space.
Those elements are antiquated ideas that are not actually accurate models of what reality is made of.
Why do you say that?
Because
coming from a farmer's perspective, can I explain coming from a farmer's perspective? Can I give you a few of my just growing up and my experience of this experience? Is, for example, now this time of year,
what good can it possibly do if you're going to go from a colloquial, hey, I'm a farmer, here's how I describe the world, if that's not the accurate descriptions that science has taught us?
Well, obviously, there's questions that I ask when I'm doing these work. There's questions that I ask myself to understand the reality that I'm in, of course. But I do believe that the elements are accurate because when we're growing corn, for example, we put the seed in the ground and it takes the earth and it takes pretty much the sun rays, which is a fire from the sun that uses to grow, and it uses from the earth from the water and the air and the space. That's how we get corn, and eventually that corn. What is the seed? Yeah, and then the seed is the genetic
seed
makeup we've made.
Is the seed fire, air, water, or earth?
Yes.
Okay, I'm done.
Mandisa, you're muted.
Mandisa, you're muted. I'm so sorry. I wasn't looking at the screen to let you know.
Sorry about that. No, sorry about that. I was just trying to say, well, did the corn have a great grandfather?
Yes, because through farming, we've understood in genetics, and we actually can breed it. I'm saying yes, there is. We can breed genetics based on whether we want for, let's say, a taller stalk for corn silage versus a bigger ear for. We can do that, and there's memory built into that genetic, which was also made from the prior year's corn that we actually got, and we actually improved through genetic makeup. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, that's how we're improving corn in quality, and that's how we're improving cows and everything as well, because we understand. From farming, I've seen many generations of cows, and I've seen the change, the similarities, and the memory that's made up in the genes, and it's all based because eventually we feed that corn goes into that cow, and eventually turns into that cow. And tell me how that happens.
It happens
Tell you how what
through
happened?
like out of production. How does
when we feed
corn
my
go in? No, go ahead.
I feed my cows corn, and guess what happens? It turns into a cow.
No, it
the
doesn't.
cow eats it, and
No.
how does it? Then how does it? Then how does the cow grow with the meat and stuff? When I don't,
so
how does it
your
grow?
your body, and the cow's body break down food
Correct.
into
which is fire.
specific.
Which is fire.
Oh my! Shut up! Cows and other animals break down the food they eat into the constituent parts, but they don't break it down into air, earth, fire, and water. They could break it down into chemical structures that we know that don't fit into air, earth, fire, and water. While H2O is what we call water, there are other liquids that aren't water. Right?
Correct. But we're
So
talking
if
about
there's
a cow
a liquid,
that's made up of these
if
things.
there's a liquid,
I'm talking about a cow.
if there's a liquid that isn't water, is that liquid air, fire, or earth?
If that liquid isn't water,
Yeah.
Name what liquid is liquid that has no water in it.
I didn't say, first of all, that there was a liquid that had no water in it. I said if there was a liquid that wasn't water, water being H2O. But okay, oil.
Oil. Yes, that is correct. We use oil for lubricants, and it is part of, and it's actually in the earth, right? And it's burning.
Is it water? Oh, so you're saying oil is earth?
It's concentrated, squeezed down from all the minerals and stuff, squeezed from rain, and yes.
No, Tim, that's not where Tim, that's not where oil comes from. It's not squeezed down from rain. So you still have the Aristotelian
fossil fuels and fossil
I'm
fuels
sorry,
and
but
stuff,
I'm
yeah.
still talking. So you still have this antiquated, debunked Aristotelian essentialist view of air, earth, fire, and water, which is not at all consistent with the findings of modern science, and you don't know where oil comes from. So what's the point? What are you going to demonstrate a god or anything at all in this, or are you just going to keep presenting antiquated, debunked, non-scientific ideas about how the world works?
So I was trying to explain. So I don't feed oil to my cows, but I'm trying to explain. When I see what I'm trying to explain to
Tim,
when a cow eats,
Tim, before you go on,
eventually turns into a cow.
Tim, before you go on, the sentence you just said, I don't feed oil to my cows. How is that relevant to anything I asked or discussed?
Because you mentioned that there was nothing, because when I was talking about what I feed to a cow, you changed the subject on what I was trying to explain of what a cow eats and digests, and it eventually is this cow. And you kind of changed the subject, and it kind of caught me off guard. That's my. Because I'm just doing farming. Obviously, like I've seen cows that have like 107 temperature before. So obviously, there's things that there's energy in these cows that are. There is fire within all of our beings.
Tim, congratulations. There's nothing I can say, and there's no way for me to help you. For whatever reason, you are so misinformed that I don't know any way for anybody to, like, we would need to take you back to elementary school and start teaching you the facts about science and chemistry and all that, because you seem to have, you seem to definitely be hung up on what cows are doing, as if that demonstrates the basic building blocks of the universe. And I'm not convinced that anyone anywhere can go from cows eat corn to make new cows. Therefore, I've discovered Aristotle was right, and it's all earth, air, fire, water, and possibly ether. That is,
and also
in
that
the present,
if you can't trace your great grandfather and have his name in no stories, then all of a sudden, that explains God too. I mean, that's what I'm getting from that as well.
Yeah, Tim hung up. I was really trying to see what we could get, but yeah,
we need to get on those grandfather stories then. Those great grandfather stories. I mean, I'm just still trying to figure out how we ended up from knowing about which ancestor and what information we knew about our ancestors to that.
Yeah. I guess what I could have done, which is really easy, is say that water is H2O. And if water is H2O, and we know that water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen, which element is hydrogen and oxygen? I mean, neither of them are liquids at, normal temperatures. I mean, obviously you can get liquid oxygen, but air isn't oxygen. As a matter of fact, the air we breathe has more nitrogen. But if you were to say that hydrogen is water and oxygen is air, then when you combine water and air, you get water. I mean, we've gone from these hypothetical Aristotelian primitive approximations of what things might be made of. Air, earth, fire, water, and ether, because he needed something that was incorruptible. And then, despite that information, we started to actually continue exploring the world. And we found out that the very idea that there could be as few as 4 basic building blocks, and that they were those 4, is completely flawed. That what's actually happened here is the failure of argument via analogy. And so we're wonderful. I mean, human beings fuck all kinds of things up, but to the extent that we're good at anything, we are both good at and terrible at, in differing amounts, understanding the world. Mm-hmm. Because when we see something, first thing we try and do is say, does it fit into any of the boxes I already know?
Right.
And that's good. By and large, if you're correct that it does fit into a box you already know, then your work's done and you can move on with your day. And you don't have to sit there and toil over, gosh, I wonder what this is. But every now and then we find that there's something that doesn't fit neatly into the box of what we did before. And so when Aristotle proposes that everything is earth, air, fire, and water, some people are just going to accept it. And evidently some people are going to accept it millennia later. But other people are like, hang on, we've learned more. We now know about atoms. And we know about the parts of atoms. If you're going to say everything's made up of earth, air, fire, and water is made up of hydrogen and oxygen are made up of electrons, neutrons, and protons, well, is a proton earth, air, fire, or water? This is pretty straightforward, and it's because we learned more. It's not because it was a dumb idea. It's because we start with an analogy, and then we start doing the testing, and we say, does this fit? Does this work? Does this increase and improve our understanding of things, or does it detract from it? But yeah. All right, we got a couple calls left. One of them I already put on. I'm so sorry, Marissa. You are live. Marissa's calling about coping with the idea of non-existence.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's see if we can help.
So, a little bit of elaboration on that. I wanted to ask both of you.
Oh, I can't do it if we got people yelling in the
Sorry
background.
about that. Yeah, I
I really want to address the
sorry
question.
about that.
Hopefully,
I'm so sorry.
it's all right. You held on for
So,
over an hour, so we'll exercise some patience. What's up?
So I'm just curious for both of you. I know that you not deconverted, and I'm just curious if you both could tell me from your own experiences how you came to terms with or coped with the idea that once we're done. There is no soul, there is no afterlife, there is none of that.
For me,
I plan to reach out to recovering from religion, but it's just in the meantime, I just wanted to get y'all's opinion.
yeah, I've answered this many times before. I might throw something in at the end, but I'm really interested to hear what Mandisa's take is.
Well, I will just say thank you for calling and asking that question. There are times where I'm not even sure I have come to terms with it. I mean, I know that is going to happen. Am I nervous or scared about it? Yes. And I think that is I think that's where a lot of people's like thoughts lie, right? You know, many of us think that, well, it's not supposed to be a scary or an uncertain process to come to, or a conclusion to come to. You know, it's not always comforting. It's not even comforting for many of us who know that, or who can understand that this is how we're gonna end up. And part of that is, you know, we're not there yet. There are some of us who, depending on either whether we have certain conditions, or if we know that time is near, we may think about it more. Some of us, it may feel like it's far off, but I'm at a point where I'm not even sure. I still, when I think about it, it's still scary to me. Because, you know, I'm a human being, and it's like, well, hell, I mean, there are times where I'm like, okay, but there are times where I'm like, holy crap, you know, this is going to happen. And it can be a scary thought. And I think that's the case for a lot of people. I think that's the case for a lot of us. I cope with, you know, I help to it. I have come to the understanding that it is going to happen. Do I sit around and think about it every day though? No, because there is so much more to be done in this life that I'm living now, whether it is my family, my children, my activism, my community. There is so much more to be focused on, even as even as Matt opened the show, there is a devastating storm that is coming. And it's good to focus on how we are going to help people now. So I think I know for me, and maybe for others as well, is that we don't just sit around and just wait for it to happen. We know it's going to happen. Sure, there are times where I think about it and it's scary. However, there is so much more in the world that we can do until that time comes. And that is where, and I also try to focus on being a better version of myself every day. So that way, that life is more fulfilling and more meaningful until we get there. That is my approach to it. And like I said, it's not a perfect process, but definitely it's definitely not that I'm just sitting over it like, and that it's hanging over my head every day.
Yeah, I think I have a slightly more kind of, I don't know, maybe I'm weird, pragmatic take on it, in that for me, finding out that I didn't have any good reason to believe that I was going to live forever, it's kind of like finding out that if I go into a wardrobe, I'm not going to walk through to a magical land, or that I'm not inheriting $1 billion, or any number of other things. If I believed that something was true and I find out it's not, I'm the sort of person, I don't have to come to grips with it. I'm done. Like, if this is the case until something else changes, then it's just so. To sit here and waste whatever life I have left, like, I know I'm alive now. I don't know if I'm going to be alive tomorrow. And so, like Mandisa's talking about it being the best version of yourself, even if you're not even striving to necessarily be the best you. Let's imagine that I have 30 years left, that I'll die at 85, because I'm 55 right now. Would it be better for me to spend the next 30 years constantly struggling with the fact that I'm not going to go to heaven? Or would it be better for me to spend those 30 years ignoring that kind of situation and focusing on the life I actually have? And for me, it's just a simple, pragmatic decision. I can't worry about stuff that I can't fix. And also, if it, I've been lied to several times in my life. I've had people pretend to be my friends and lie directly to my face. And that hurts. That hurts way more than parents and preachers telling me that Jesus is going to whisk me off to heaven after I die. Because they're at least telling me what they think is true. When somebody betrays you personally, like looks in your face and lies to you, that is way worse. And it sucks, because now I'm spending my time judging myself. The old Matt that believed in an afterlife, he wasn't stupid. My IQ didn't go up. None of that. I mean, it's the same guy. And there was no dishonesty there. I was told things by people who were convinced they were true, and I became convinced for bad reasons. But as soon as I understood that the reasons were bad, I had no choice. I didn't choose to stop believing. I just stopped believing. It's like that was taken away. Just like if you go up to the ATM and you're convinced that there's $7,000 in your bank account, and you put your card in and press check balance, and it says $22.18, you can sit there and go, gosh, where did the other $7,000 go? But at the end of the day, you're broke. You got next to nothing left in there. And if you spend the next week going, it just bums me out that I don't have the $7,000 you're not doing anything to make that, however much it was, $20, whatever, to increase that or to make it right or anything else. You could get so mired down in, hey, I was wrong about something, or somebody else was wrong about something, to where you can't even focus on making the decisions that make life better. And so for me, there wasn't a struggle. And I get it. Not everybody is like that. I fully appreciate. I think I'm weird in that sense. I genuinely think that whether it's something to do with being, I don't know, who knows what's weird about me? I'm weird. But I also am practical and pragmatic. And so if I can't do anything about it, it just enters a void of, I'll worry about that when there's something I can do about it.
Yeah, see, for me, I have an issue with needing to rationalize things. And so, like, with your example with the $7,000, I would very much like to know where the hell all my money just went. So I would probably
agree.
take a couple of days to investigate and whatnot. But
I agree.
as far as the whole soul thing goes, I am a little more. I'm vibing a little bit better with Mandisa, where like no, I don't sit here and avidly think about it all day, every day. But it is one of those thoughts that keeps me up at night on occasion. Where
yeah, there are times where it will.
Yeah, exactly.
But the thing is how you go through life handling that. And it sounds like, is that your child or grandchild or who's that in the background?
That is my child.
Okay.
Yay.
Now, how old is your child? Yay! Congratulations. How old is your child?
He's my youngest. He's 3.
Okay. You know, I kind of miss those. I kind of miss my kids when they were those ages, but then I don't. But the thing is now is to, and I say that trying to inject a little humor here because it is a very, very tough subject. But the thing is now that you have a 3-year-old and you are raising him, or they, the best thing is now, you know, as a fellow mother, is how you are going to raise this child to be the best version, or at least provide as much of your life and give as much as you can so that this child can be the best version of themselves. There's so much to be focused on now with your children and with other things, and also yourself.
Of course.
Does that make sense?
And like I said, I'm right there with you where it comes and goes, and I just have my moments where it really weighs on my mind, and then there are other moments where I'm just as practical and nonchalant about it as you were expressing that, where it's just like, okay, so I no longer have a soul. I still have to continue living life and doing my day to day.
And the thing I'm saying is that is an okay place to be. It doesn't have to always be one, it doesn't have to be all or nothing. There are times where you may think about it, and there are times where you're not going to think about it at all. It's going to happen now. That may happen. And that is what you should be okay with, comfortable with, that it coming and going.
Yeah. Usually the only time that it really starts to weigh on my mind is when I face moments of my own mortality, where it's just like, holy crap, I'm actually, once I hit that point, I am actually gone.
Yeah, and it can be very scary at times.
Absolutely.
But I think it is okay for you to sit with that there are going to be times where if it does weigh on your mind, it will. Even if there is, like Matt said, it's going to be what it is. There are times where we may worry where it will scare us at times, but and it is okay to be comfortable with knowing that it may scare you sometimes.
All right. Well, thank you so much. And Matt, not to upset you at all, if it were to, but I will be calling on the other shows and asking them the same general question, just because I like to get different takes on everybody.
Cool. If they feel like giving you an answer, yep, good deal. Thanks, Marissa. In addition to the, genuinely, I kind of joke that I'm weird. I may well be. And I say that I am weird. Let's just face it. For whatever reason, there are things where my pragmatism is just a matter of fact. Like, for example, when I had open heart surgery, I was having difficulty. We went in, we saw the doctor, we tried to do a stress test. I failed it miserably. and they went in to try to do to see if they could put a stent in. And I don't know, Arden, what was that? Was I in there for like 5-10 minutes when they wheeled me right back out?
Yeah, they had
And
told me it was going to be 30, and the guy came back out in 10 minutes tops.
yeah. And of course they
Wow.
sit you down in there, and then they're like, yeah, we weren't able to put a stent in. You have this and this and this, and we are going to be doing a triple bypass on you next week. So
Yeah.
go ahead, go home, get everything ready that you need, and we're going to do that operation next week.
Mhm.
I did not have, and Arden and my brother can back me up on this, whether it's a good thing or a bad thing. I had 0 moments of crisis throughout this as far as me and my health. The only things I was slightly worried about was how the people who loved me were going to deal with it, and whether or not I was potentially, like if I died, would I be leaving a big mess for somebody? And honestly, I didn't, to the extent that I didn't spend much time worrying about the mess that I might leave, because for me, I was going to the hospital, and that's where you go to make things better. And when I went in there, and they come and they shave my legs down because they're going to harvest. That was the worst part, actually, was the weird feeling in my leg where they kind of harvested a vein to use for the surgery. But I was in there, Arden's hanging on, holding on to my hand, and I'm laughing and joking and trying to have some fun with it, because my view was they're going to wheel me into a room and they're going to put me unconscious. And I'm either going to wake up at some point down the road in better shape, worse shape, whatever, nothing I can do about it, or I'm going to die. And if I die, I don't want the last thing that happened for me to be pissed or sad or in a fight with somebody or whatever else. I'd like to have laughed right before they put me out. I use the laughing gas to give me a laugh if you can't do it any other way. And so I think that my entire process of having open heart surgery was much harder on Arden and my brother, who were there to take care of me and watch and see everything, than it could have ever been for me. I went off the pain meds after, like, was it 2-3 days, hon? After I got home?
Yep.
And, not that, oh, look at me, I went off the pain meds. No, it was, once the surgery was over and we realized I was going to be fine, the last thing I needed, after hearing all the troubles that people had of becoming addicted to pain meds, was to become addicted to pain meds. And so I was like, okay, instead of just continuing to take this to make sure I prevent any pain, let me actually manage the pain. And if the pain gets too much, boom, I take a pain pill. And if it doesn't, then I sit here. I had my little blanket or my little pillow to cough into and everything else. But it was all just practical. And I'm thrilled. I'm incredibly grateful to all the doctors that found the problem. The doctor that worked on me did great. I've got a cool pink scar on my chest, and it's and I'm in better shape overall than I've been in decades. What were the other options? Well, I had a friend who was in a coma for a month. I could have been in a coma for a while. There could have been some really negative consequence of the surgery where I continued to live, but was in the hospital for the rest of all those things. Anything like that could be happening. But my brain says, deal with the stuff that you can do something about. And if something comes up that you can't, just don't ignore it. Don't just put it on the shelf until something about it changes where you can actually get to it.
Right. And I think that it is where I understood was that it takes people, some people I don't think may ever get to that point where they can be as pragmatic or as practical as many of us can be. But there are times, I think that in like religious indoctrination tends to condition people to be either uncertain all the time or want certainty all the time. And that's not always going to happen. And I think people need to get comfortable with being uncertain sometimes. if that makes sense. If they're just thinking about things from that purely, like, I wouldn't say esoterical, but like the what if, it is you have to allow yourself that discomfort so that you can move forward, especially for something like death. Because I try not to think about it all the time because we know it's going to happen. And at this point, it's, like I said, it's going to happen whether we want it to or not. And it's okay for people to just sometimes sit with it. But don't sit with it too long. Like you said, don't sit with it too long because, like I said, there's so much life to live and there's so much that we can do. But so I get it, but it's like, yeah.
Well, here's our final call for tonight. This is Allison in California, pronouns are she, her. Allison, I noticed you're on a web thing, so if you're on your phone, you may want to tap the phone to wake it back up. I appreciate you waiting for over an hour to talk about Thomas Paine and a potential path to atheism. So how can we help?
Hello.
Hi, Matt. Hello. Can you hear me?
Hi. Yes, we do.
Hi, Matt and Mandisa. First, can I thank you, Matt? Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Hello? Okay. Matt, I just want to thank you first for your debate with Jordan Peterson some years ago.
Yep.
That really helped me come out to my family as an atheist. So thank you.
Thank you for saying so. I'm glad that was useful for somebody.
Yeah, definitely. So this year I've been reading a lot of Thomas Paine, and actually you and your team here remind me a lot of Thomas Paine because he was not an apologist for theism, or at least not for the Bible. In fact, he died a lonely man because he pretty much debunked the Bible and raised up in his work, The Age of Reason, he raised up all the contradictions in the Bible, a lot like you guys do on your show.
We owe Thomas Paine quite a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, I agree. I just felt he was such a kindred spirit. And so I liked that he said that every person has their own unique relationship to the divine, and he didn't presume to prescribe what anybody's relationship to the divine should be, that it was totally individual.
Yep.
And I'm wondering,
one area where I disagree with him, but
yes. So I'm wondering if you think that he might have become an atheist in today's environment, in today's political climate, given that it's a little bit more accepted, and that he kind of like a lot of people who are villainized for not having mainstream beliefs. Maybe he had to pick his battles that, he could go as far as saying, well, I don't believe in all these contradictions in the Bible, but if I say I don't believe in God, that I won't have credibility in all the other areas where I have influence. And I'm wondering if you think that train of thought has any validity. Because he was, in my book, he was the most influential person in the world promoting what you call well-being. He not only influenced our Bill of Rights, he helped write the French Bill of Rights. He was one of the main spokesmen for the Enlightenment and the idea that well-being is what we should be after as a society. And so I'm just wondering what your ideas are on that.
Well, he has at least one contemporary who I think is also incredibly significant on that front. That's Voltaire. But it's difficult to say, to pluck someone anachronistically out of their time, plant them in ours, and say, I'm pretty confident this person would have been an atheist. When it comes to Thomas Paine, I suspect there's a strong likelihood that might be the case, but, we might as well be saying, is it possible for Batman to beat up Superman if he's got some kryptonite stashed? Sure. We're still in the fantasy realm. What I will say is that Thomas Paine, coming out of Enlightenment philosophy, was absolutely critical in all the ways that you pointed out, and was pretty reasonable. And the things where he and I disagree, I think more importantly, it might be the case that I might not have publicly. I might have just agreed with Thomas Paine if you move me back in time to then. So I really, I mean, it's just speculative, but when you're talking about somebody who's at best advocating for like Spinoza's God of, some kind of deistic non-intervening first cause, not interventioning. Wow. Public speaker, give me a raise. But yeah, it's, I can't really say, but it's a fun thing to speculate on. But yeah. What do you think, Mandisa?
So I would say that given Thomas Paine's position on slavery, which he was anti-slavery, not only was he anti-slavery, but he was also an advocate for reparations. A lot of people don't know. I'm going to say that on this show. He was very much an advocate for reparations for enslaved people. And so I would say that he would probably identify more as a humanist than maybe
secular humanist.
Atheist. Yeah, he would identify, which Matt and I both identify as secular humanists.
I know.
But he would also put many modern humanists to shame, because there are still some humanists that would argue against reparations. But he had a very sound reasoning. I'm sorry, Allison. I'll
no, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go on, please.
No, I was just saying that he had a very sound reasoning for arguing against like the pro-slavery Christianity, which he did, which did not win him many friends.
Right.
Like you said, he got lonely because he disagreed with a lot of the founding fathers, including Thomas Jefferson, on that. And also, his stances were, I think by today's standards, he'd be right in line. I think he was very much ahead of his time with quite a few things that he stood for.
And isn't it ironic, Mandisa? I'm so thrilled you know Thomas Paine's practical philosophy, because a lot of people, he's called the father of the American Revolution, and not like George Washington, who's the father of the country. I think that's a better title, to be called the father of the revolution, because he's the person who inspired us to go ahead and go for our independence. And yes, this is what I don't get, where the big disconnect is. Not only, like you said, that he was against slavery, he was a socialist. He believed in using the common purse to take care of all of society. He believed in that the Native Americans should be as well off as they were before we came to this soil. He believed that widows and orphans and poor people should have access to funds and support, all these things. So he was what we would call a socialist now, I guess. And how did we get so far away from that being a good thing in this country, and socialism being something that's evil? How did that happen?
Well, that is a big question. I mean, it's unfortunate that even during Paine's time, he saw that people's ambitions and greed usually tend to get the better of, people's humanity. And so we've seen that even in the way other definitely groups were treated in this country. And that could be a whole show in itself. But I think that it is good to look to, his life and his positions and what he stood for, and try to model it a whole lot better. There are certainly a lot of people who can learn from Thomas Paine, even especially today.
Well, I couldn't agree more, Mandisa, and I wish more people knew more about our actual history, because it seems like, this is supposed to be one of a political themed show, but this kind of overtone of this week. And so it seems like we have to choose between someone who's authoritarian leaning versus someone who wants to help the people. And it seems to me like if you believe in a kind God, a God that's supposed to care about his people, which so many Christians say they do, why would you be backing someone who's picking and choosing who are the chosen ones? So that's another thing I don't understand, and it seems like such a contradiction to me. But I really thank you for letting me ask the question, and thank you for sharing your perspective and your wisdom.
Thank you. And before you go, I would like to let you know about the Thomas Paine Memorial Association that is working on getting a statue of Thomas Paine in Washington, D.C. So we've gone through. I served on. I was happy to be a part of a hearing in which that was approved, and so you can look for that in the very near future. There will be a monument to Thomas Paine in Washington, D.C. very, 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 very soon.
Wow, this was real synchronicity. I just feel so lucky that I got to talk with you today, Mandisa, about Thomas Paine and know about this connection. So I just wrote that down. Thank you.
Awesome.
Well, thanks, Allison. I'm glad we could help after keeping you on hold for so long.
It was an honor to get to talk with you both.
So on that note, we're going to let you go. We're going to get ready to do a bunch of super chats. We're going to shut down the phone system stuff now. Let me get my queue list. Boom. It's my queue list of super chats is called pho. It's the fuck. $10 for Brooklyn Janet. Matt, I'm infuriated. I live in Boca Raton, Florida, and found out Representative Anna Palima Luma for Seminole, Florida, which is about to get battered by the hurricane, voted against funds for FEMA. Of course, as did a lot of Republicans. And they'll do it in the sense, granted, let me just be clear. I'm not going to be both sidesing anything. Pretty much fuck 90% of the people with an R after their name is my take on this. However, the United States government is a hot mess of broken nonsense. And the way things work is you can have a really good bill and someone can kill it by adding an amendment that virtually everybody would think is bad. And then you're put in this position of, oh, do I kill the bill that's good and have to explain to everybody why I killed a good bill? Or do I vote for a bill that's good because it's got a bad amendment? So there are compromises that take place amongst representatives and senators that is just all about the political power machinations that go on and take place. And they're not. You can't currently get things done just focused on helping people and making the world better. There's always some greedy asshole that's got to make it a little worse than it should be. And so if they just want to reduce spending, they can add one of those amendments to a bill, and then all of them will be forced to vote against it. And then they get the cover of, here's the reason I did. And that's all well and good right up until tomorrow when the body count starts. And then the people need to be held accountable. And people need to also be celebrated and applauded for doing the right thing. If FEMA does a good job, as they have been so far, then take the politics out of it, because FEMA exists no matter who is president. And if they're coming there to help people with disasters, then they need our help. They need us to stay out of the way. They need us to do we need to do the things that we're asked to do to make sure that the experts are able to do helping as best they can. And you all need to vote. I would joke early and often, but somebody will soundbite that out and make it a thing. Vote, and for any of those people that tried to vote against FEMA, if they didn't have some, if there wasn't some amendment tagged to this that was like going to force people to give up their firstborn, those people need to be voted out of office, just like Marjorie Taylor Greene. She can go talk about space lasers and democratic weather machines somewhere other than Congress.
Oh, wow. So there's a $10 super chat from Jared Bear Fuller. If anyone from Florida can see or hear this super chat, my love goes out to all of you, and I hope you'll stay safe during this horrific disaster. Thank you for that, Jared.
Absolutely. And I'm already planning, by the way, we're talking about ways that we can assist with relief efforts. And I didn't want to turn tonight's show into, let's start a telethon to help people. But I'm absolutely going to be donating. I won't be donating $5 million like Taylor Swift did because, well, let's be honest, I don't have $5 million. I don't even have $5,000. I have 1,000 that I set aside to bet the dipshits that want to call in and talk trash to me. I just set aside $1,000 just in case I have to pony up. But not having that sort of thing hanging over us, I'm going to be donating some portion of this to hurricane relief. We haven't decided, but there's also the chance that we might be doing some other stuff in the near future, depending on how hard people are hit, because this is the sort people talk about the October surprise that's going to change everything, and they thought, ooh, Bob Woodward's book's going to do it. And I would have done tonight's show about Bob Woodward's book, where he points out that Trump sent COVID test stuff to Putin as like a personal favor when nobody here could really get him. And you know what? I'm not even that mad about that one. I'm not. That's the sort of, hey, let me send you a couple kits as another foreign leader that I'm going to have to work. Man, that could have just been a thing of goodwill. But the fact that he prioritized getting it to Putin over American citizens, it makes it a bigger deal. And when you look at the other things that's in Bob Woodward's book, Woodford? Yes. There's a lot of problems there. I could have been talking about that. I could have been talking more about all the lies and everything else. But there are people that are getting hammered, and it's going to continue for the next couple of days, actually. So $10 from Greg Murkowski. Thanks again, Greg. Thanks for having Mandisa on tonight. She's one of my favorite guests. Me too. You're just like me. Speaking of favorites.
Hey, $12 from Cynthia. Hey, Matt and Mandisa, just wanted to check in. It's good to see you, sis. Oh, good to see you too. Thank you for supporting the show. And thank you for everything you do for Black non-believers and for the movement.
Facts. Just we're absolutely throwing facts around right now. Thank you so much, Cynthia. $20 from Mr. Boricua. I got it. Boricua. Roll the R a tiny bit. I think I did it. Mandisa, hope for a superb recovery in car search. Anyone else with family in Florida, as I do, and those in Florida, I wish all you the best. Do all you can to stay safe. Much love. Thank you so much, Mr. Boricua. I almost rolled it first time. See?
Cash App from David. XO.
Oh, no, that's not Cash App. CA is that's Canadian. It's
Canadian
fake money,
dollars.
but we'll take it. Troll the mods.
Yep. Chats of less than $10.
And then there's 1001 to make up for it. Matt, more powerful than God. Hail Matt. It's a fact. I can say with confidence, I am more powerful than everything that doesn't exist. And so until some God demonstrates that it actually exists, I'm already, default assumption, vastly more powerful than those gods. Hey, there's more from David.
Matt is an absolute massive problem to irrational belief. Touche.
And yet another one from David Hackshaw, $10 Canadian. Trans rights are human rights. Yes. And thanks for all the support and everything else.
Okay, yes, $10 From Rico Zuna, I'm sure that's something. Where's the I'm going to mute you merch? Yes. Also, Mandisa, keep doing what you do. We need to make Georgia blue again. We need to keep it blue. Georgia already was turned purple in 2020. We definitely need to make it blue for 2024.
There is a possibility, a non-zero possibility, that Texas is going to become a little bit more bluer next month. Right now, so most of you have remember when Beto was running, and Beto ran against Cruz, and then he tried running for governor, and he failed both of those attempts, even though we were really, really optimistic about some of it. And Texas is always on the verge of being bluer because all of the major cities in Texas are very, very blue. The problem is that there's a lot of places in Texas that aren't the major cities. And so as you look at this, Ted Cruz refused to debate his opponent, Colin Allred. And then a couple of weeks ago, a poll showed Colin Allred ahead of Ted Cruz here in Texas. And as soon as that poll hit, Cruz was all of a sudden very interested in debating Colin Allred. Now, I got a Colin Allred sign in my front yard. I got a Harris sign in my front yard. Somebody came over today and asked where we got them. And I'm, Arden was like, yeah, we got them right off their campaign website. The guy down the street from me has a Veterans for Kamala sign or Veterans for Harris sign. I forget which one he's got up. But Colin Allred is at least dead even with Ted Cruz, if not slightly ahead. And to have a Democratic senator replace one of the most problematic Republican senators would be huge.
Oh,
and
that would be fantastic.
I think because of that, the Attorney General of Texas has now requested verification of citizenship status for 1 million or 2 million voters that he's expecting to get answers on before. So basically, they're trying to clean up. Now, there's nothing wrong with cleaning up the voter rolls. People die, and you don't need dead people registered anymore. So you clean that stuff up. But they're going after this thing on the subject of citizenship, and they're doing it last minute, and they're doing it when Colin Allred is ahead. I'm not saying something's going on. I'm just saying somebody needs to be keeping an eye on this to make sure that they're not doing anything to inhibit legitimate votes by legitimate citizens. Oh, I didn't even read that one. That said, don't give up, Matt. At some point, God will send someone who can defend them. I almost hope you're right. On the one hand, if God actually sends somebody who can defend him, well, that would mean that God exists already. But this notion that it could happen is one of the reasons I keep doing this. I don't think it's likely, but I've been wrong before. And I'm willing for a God or a God's defender to actually show that I'm wrong.
Right. Says $10 from Terrible Liar. My family is going through hard times. I'm a bit jealous of my family members who believe praying will help. Feeling a bit powerless, but alas, atheist in a foxhole over here. We totally understand that. I oftentimes find myself, I'm like, do some believers actually understand how challenging it is for us to not just wish that we could have a magic wand where somebody could magically solve all of our problems and they go away? I'm like, man, that would be perfect. Right.
Sign me up for 2 magical friends that can make my problems go away. At the end of the day, though, I completely get the frustration. One of the things is that when you're on Facebook and social media and you're like us and you've got a bunch of atheists in your feed, when something goes wrong for somebody dies, somebody gets sick, somebody's going through hard times, as this is going to happen this weekend.
Right.
It's very frustrating to not have any platitudes that you can throw out. Right. Things like, I'll pray for you, like, oh, God never gives you more than you can handle, or, oh, there's a plan. It's very frustrating until you realize that platitudes are what we toss out when we can't do anything that's actually of value. And when you recognize that, and this is where the frustration comes, it's not, hey, they can do something and you can't. It's, they can pretend they're doing something and you're refusing to do that. Once you get that mindset about those platitudes that get thrown out, once you recognize them for what they are, you can say, you know what? I can still be comforting. I'm very sorry you're going through that. I wish there was something I could do to help. If there's something I can do to help, can you, let me know. Those sorts of things are at least as good as thoughts and prayers, at least as good as platitudes, and they have the added advantage of possibly doing actual good. It's not, I had a friend once whose 15-year-old kid died after a couple years struggle with cancer. She was a believer. I was not. She and I had conversations about this, and what we talked about was pain management, end of life issues. I was the one that she came to when she didn't need or want platitudes and wanted to talk about things in the real world with evidence. And I would also let her know, I love you. I'm sorry this is happening. It's completely unfair. And despite our disagreement on whether or not there was a God, that never came up until she brought it up and was saying, the people in my life who are religious, they're, oh, God needs another angel. God's taking him home. God's taking, all this. And they're saying these things, and it was hurting her. And she would come to me to talk about it. And I didn't sit there and go, yep, that's the shittiness of religion. I know that there's people out there who have this view of me because of what they see on the show, where I'm interacting with people who are repeatedly dishonest.
You're bullying people. They would never treat people the way you do.
It's so wild.
Well,
Genuinely, and Jazz, love you. I just wanted to give the best advice that I could for my friend and to comfort my friend while she was going through something awful. I'm not going to claim I was remotely good at it. I am not. For whatever reason, if somebody starts crying around me, I'm overwhelmed, and I have, I try to be compassionate, but I feel like, I screwed this up already. I know that I don't handle it well. I also know that I don't handle a lack of closure well. I'm planning to do more about that in the future as well. But I get the frustration of not knowing what platitudes to throw out when people are going through hard times. I view it as an advantage in that I don't have to know platitudes. I don't have to toss out meaningless statements. I can actually say something that's true and meaningful, which is, let's see what we can do to fix this. And if we can't do anything to fix it, I'll at least be here to give you a hug and not fill your head with nonsense. So give yourself some slack there, terrible liar. $10 from Secular Humanist. Mandisa, your Facebook friend here. Matt, hugs for you. Thank you so much. I clicked one and skipped one, so here we go.
Okay, $10 from Taylor Made 28. It's great to see Mandisa on the line. I hope we can see her on Chewed Gum. I'd love to hear your thoughts on the topics on that show. Much love to Matt as well. I'm not sure what the YGH is.
YGH is you're gay, homie. That was the big insult that my detractors tried to throw at me. It's like, okay. They're constantly. It's funny because they'll simultaneously correctly and incorrectly gender harden and be like, "Oh, your girlfriend's a man," and I'm like, "You just included both. You just called her my girlfriend." But the other thing was like, some guy thought he was being cool, and he's like, "You're gay, homie." That was his whole comment on the YouTube videos. "You're gay, homie." So we turned it into a T-shirt, and I've made more money off the "You're gay, homie" guys than he ever imagined I would have. It's hilarious.
Wow. But on another note, I'd love to be on Chewed Gum. So yeah, let's talk about that.
There you go. $10 from Storm Chaser Noah. Is there good biblical reason? No. I don't need to read the rest of any comment that says, is there good biblical reason? Okay, I'm teasing. Is there good biblical reason to not obey Mosaic law? Reference to Matthew chapter 5, jot or tittle quote. All has not been fulfilled. P.S. Don't worry. Weather conspiracy is driving me bonkers too. I bet. Especially with a name like Storm Chaser Noah.
Yeah.
So the answer to your question, weirdly, is going to be yes. And I'm gonna duck just a little bit. It'd be nice to get a couple of Christians to chime in and answer this, because there's the Noahic covenant that everybody is under. Basically, when God killed off everybody except for Noah and his family members, everybody's under that covenant. And then there's the Mosaic covenant, which technically only applies to God's chosen people, the ancient Israelites and their descendants. And so I'm not subject, as I'm not Jewish, to the 613 commandments that are there for the Jews. I'm under the Noahic covenant. There's something different. Now, there's a whole lot of theology behind this, and there's 1,000 different denominations that all identify as some version of Christian, and they disagree on virtually any point you can come up with. But your message about Matthew chapter 5, where, not a jot or a tittle of the law would change until all has been fulfilled, and you say not all has been fulfilled. Yes, you could look at it that way, but that still is just saying that the jot and tittle of the law for Jews under the Mosaic covenant isn't going to change until Christ returns in his glory and fulfills everything. So yes, I probably need to go take a shower now, but that's my ex-Christian take on that yes, there is a Christian apologetic that would say Gentiles don't need to obey Mosaic law because they're under the Noahic covenant. And there are objections to that as well. But I'm not going to preach both sides today.
$10 from Secular Strategy. Hey, Matt, can you remind of the title of that logic textbook you've shown a few times? Thanks. Keep up the good work.
Well, I could, but it's not in here like it normally is, but it's called A Concise Introduction to Logic. That's the actual textbook. A Concise Introduction to Logic. I could go grab it maybe, but you'll find it from there. Thanks so much. Another $10 Canadian from David Haxor. If the LGBTQIA plus keeps accepting people that are oppressed by Christians, it'll soon include the entire alphabet. Yeah.
Yep.
And you know what's even funnier? There's a whole bunch of LGBTQIA plus people who are hiding it because they're involved in one of the religions that is in opposition to who they actually are. And once those people feel comfortable shedding support for churches that don't support who they are, the world's going to go nuts, because I'd say there's way more LGBTQIA plus people than anybody suspected. But what do I know? Evidently, I'm gay, homie.
All right, $10 from Alishana Silverbow. Matt, you meanie pants, you take my money in this joke. Why did the kid cross the playground to get to the other slide?
Nice.
Your shows have helped me improve my critical thinking skills. Thank you. Hashtag you're gay, homie.
Thank you so much, Alishana. Yeah. There are some, there's some cross the road jokes that immediately popped into my head, which I won't be saying in public. But thanks for that one. $10. I will do one dirty one, because even though I think this one's pretty safe, but Arden may have to cut it out. Ooh. Nope. All right. Why did the pervert cross the road? Because his dick was in the chicken.
Oh my goodness.
All right. I'll probably get in trouble for that one. I had to mull that over in my head to see if there was anything still in that joke that was a big problem. But $10 from Sheridan Bernasconi. What did one eye say to the other eye? Hey, between us, something smells bada bing. Great show, Mandisa. Oh, between us, something smells. Okay. There's a period there. Wow. I'm so bad at reading right now.
Okay, $10 from Monkey at Typewriter. I think I know Tim's issue. The family tree gets confusing if it doubles back on itself a lot. I'm my own grandpa. Mandisa, it was always great to see you or hear. Saw you on Jubilee. You were great. Thank you for watching that episode of Middle Ground. Please continue to share that and also share this show. So yeah.
There is I'm My Own Grandpa is a song I remember learning when I was a kid. For those who don't know, go look it up. It's a genuinely cute kind of novelty thing about marrying and remarrying interwoven families and how you can end up being your own grandma. Or not your own, well, your own grandpa. I guess you could be your own grandma too, if you change things up a little bit. But $10 from Jamnick06. Tim's thoughts on cows were an utter disaster. I've now got a beef with him for putting me in a bad mood. Had to hoof it into chat to share since there's so much at stake. Bruh. Jamnick went overtime right there and couldn't be happier about it. Here's an easy one.
Thank you. $20 from Jonathan Herbert. Wrong. I like.
And
that,
what's funny is there's a second one that's also $20 from Jonathan Herbert, and neither of them have any message, and they're back to back. And I'm wondering, Jonathan, if you had a message that you just didn't get typed and tried to do it again and failed it again, type it in chat, have one of the mods let me know, and we can get it read. If not, thank you for the concise contribution twice. $10 from Jamnick06. Recently in an art competition, I made a sculpture out of meat. The judge said, "That's a rare medium. Well done." Hashtag don't have a cow man. Hashtag Fergalburgle Manergalburgle made with real beef. Well done. Hey, look who's back.
Yes, $10 from Cynthia, the homie. Thomas Paine would have been an atheist and a reparationist today. I mean, he was definitely a reparations advocate, when he was during his time, and it is possible that he would have been an atheist. I know that there were. I know Thomas Jefferson was a deist. There were no actual none of the founding fathers were actual. They didn't identify as atheists, but it's possible. But definitely reparations for sure.
Although nowadays he might become like a Joe Rogan listener or something like that. There's more options now.
No.
$10 from Regato. Watching from just north of Tampa, windy but safe so far. Only during a hurricane can you experience a whirlwind tour without leaving your house.
Oh no.
That's the thing that I forgot to mention is that even before the storm hit, the wind shear from the storm already was causing multiple tornadoes. So you've got this huge storm barreling down with 160-mile-an-hour winds. And as it's coming in there, it's churning up tornadoes throughout,
you gotta worry about
Everglades.
Goodness
just
gracious.
Wild.
$20 from Godfrey and Good. Aloha, I'm leaning towards the biblical God being a made-up character. Is there anything about its behavior that you would use to argue that it is made up? Mahalo. Anything about its behavior that it's used to? It's just.
I get what you're asking. I think this is an area where I have a big problem. If there's an actual good case that the biblical God is a fiction that was invented, that'd be awesome. I just don't know how you actually demonstrate it. At most, you can say, well, here's the characteristics of things, of characters that have been invented. This one has those characteristics as well. Therefore, I think it was made up. The problem is, until you can come up with that test and make sure that real people don't pass or don't get listed in the made up category, and that no made up people get listed real, you don't have an actual test. I mean, you have to, or at least you need to know what your fail rate is. And none of this is testable in any way that I know. So it's like, is there anything about its behavior that you would use to argue that it's made up? Yeah. As a matter of fact, I just released a couple of videos in which I argue you basically all of them should be reductio ad absurdum, where something about the characteristics and nature of this proposed God is inconsistent with A, itself, or B, a fact about reality. And it's like, listening to somebody earlier saying, oh, God wants things to turn out differently than they did, and God knows how they're going to turn out. But that doesn't make sense, because if God created the universe, could have created it differently, and created it knowing what would happen, that means that God specifically picked this universe out of all possible universes. And if he would have wanted it to be different, then he could have made that universe. So it doesn't make sense for a God to want things to be different than they are when he's the one that made them, knowing what they would be. And I think that's probably one of the kind of stronger tweaks from it. $10 from Godfrey and Good, an additional $10 there. Thanks so much, Godfrey. Mandisa, I might be visiting family in Marietta during Thanksgiving. Does Atlanta Black Nonbelievers have anything planned around that time? Well, this has been a really good chance for Mandisa to not only tell you what's planned, but go ahead. We only got like 4 super chats. Tell us everything that's going on with Black Nonbelievers, including CCon.
Yes. So because BNCCon is like right after Thanksgiving, we don't have anything officially planned this year for a Thanksgiving. However, a few of us, I always cook a big Thanksgiving dinner. And so we might do something a bit impromptu, but please do subscribe to our YouTube channel and to our website to stay up to date on that. We are also going to be doing a Revival of Reason next year here in Atlanta. And also we have other local events here in Atlanta. And you also want to check out some of our other affiliates in Chicago. Shout out to Cynthia once again, who's the leader of our Chicago affiliate. And yes, we do programming on our channel all the time. But at this time, there's nothing official planned. But if you are going to be in the area, we love to try and get something together, at least, even if it's just like a small impromptu thing. So stay tuned. But yeah, CCon is always one of the best.
$10 from Mr. Boricua. Damn it. I tried to roll it there, but my mouth is just dry. Boricua. Mr. Boricua. Favorite Paine quote. When it shall be said in any country in the world, my poor are happy. Neither ignorance nor distress is to be found among them. Jails are empty of prisoners, streets of beggars, etc. Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's lofty ideals for a better world that I don't hear frequently in the modern world. Mm-hmm. Don't get me wrong. If you compare, for example, the 2 candidates who are currently running for president, one of them is more likely to talk about himself than anybody else. And the other one does mention people and how to make their lives better. But it seems that we're so busy treading water and trying to get out from the messes that we've created that it's very difficult to have lofty goals. Where are the, we're going to send a man to the moon goals? Where are the, now that we have dwarf wheat and we can feed twice as many people, we're going to expand that and bring water to places that need water and do what we can to end hunger and poverty around the world? Where's the big ideas that we could push for? Well, they're all stuck. They're stuck because a handful of countries on the planet have corrupt fascist dictators and governments. And another handful have governments run by religious fascists who are controlling everything and don't allow anything otherwise. And not to just put all the blame there, there are other countries where the systems are broken, where the people who should be elected aren't, where the people who are running things shouldn't, where we are doing nothing to help on climate change issues. We're doing nothing with regard to discussions about reparations. We're doing nothing to end oppression, bigotry. We're doing nothing to stand up in the face of religious privilege, white privilege, power privilege, all of the areas where things could be moved towards a normalized base. There's something standing in the way of all of them. And that's why I don't think we hear the lofty goals and the grand, here's the next challenge for humanity. Because right now, it seems like we're doing everything we can just to keep from going extinct. Hopefully, it works. So I can't wait for the next lofty goal that so many of us can get behind.
Hey, $10 from Mother of Prep. Hey, Mandisa, thanks for all you're doing, Essence. Hey, Essence, repping California, the LA area.
$10 for Sheridan Bernasconi. Hurricane relief, 1.5 million without power so far. It's 9:30. I mean, that super chat came in 20 minutes ago, so it was like 10 after 9. And I'm assuming, because I generally trust Sheridan, that they're getting it from, a news source. I haven't had a chance to watch a news source. I have a hurricane watch up on another tab, and I'm starting to see news come in about some of that, but I don't have updates. I have to watch afterwards. Final super chat for today, $20 from Wild Willie Tex. Thank you, Mandisa and Matt. Thank you, Wild Willie. I know that somebody's probably going to put another super chat in there, but I want to wrap all this up. Thank you so much, Mandisa, for joining me. I'm glad we got to jump in there and talk a little bit about Black non-believers and CCON and all the stuff that's going on. Thank you to Arden and to our call screener and our moderators. What did we learn today on the Hang Up? Well, we learned that right after I stopped saying super chats, 2 more of them come in. And so the first one is $20 from Richard West. Vote blue no matter who, because 1, Republican states may not certify their votes. 2, Heritage Foundation. 3, can't trust Supreme Court. 3, voter suppression. You got 3 twice. 4, program 2025. Yes. I am down with that. And in the final super chat for today, $10 from Monkey Typewriter. You hear the one about the American politician who traveled to Japan? They greeted him with a banner that read, "Welcome, we play for your erection." What followed was the least diplomatic trip ever. Yeah, I'm not as fond of the, I get it. We'll just leave it there. So what do we learn from today's episode of The Hang Up? Well, first of all, we learned that I'm just a bully who isn't very bright and doesn't understand theology. And yet, despite that, these folks are calling into my show and I'm not calling into theirs. Mandisa, on the other hand, is hot-buttered awesome. And that's why I don't do this on my own, because I want to have somebody here who's not a mean little boy. Mean, terrible bully. We also learned that God can be ill-defined and undefined and poorly defended. And that Andrew Wilson simps are just as dishonest as he is, and they're all incapable of honestly defending Christianity. So we get esoteric defenses of nothingness, or people who can't figure out why God desires for things to work out differently than the way he chose for them to work out when he was creating everything. Either way, Hurricane Milton is making landfall right now. We are all going to need to get together to help others out through this. Please remember the hurricanes of the past whose names you remember. Things like Katrina from 2005, Hurricane Harvey from 2017, Hurricane Ian from 2022, Hurricane Andrew from 1992, which is one of the reasons Florida decimated, and a bunch of Burmese pythons were escaped from a facility and are now taking up space all over. If you take a look at where these hurricanes were the most strong, where they're the most deadly. Katrina, Helene from last week, Ian, Harvey, Irma, Ike, Ida, Betsy, all these that you remember years later. Milton's going to be on that list because this is a big deal. It is going to be incredibly difficult, and we're all going to need to pull together. Please stay tuned to the line. Watch the shows that are coming up. I'll give you a rundown real quick of what's happening on the network over the next week or so. Tomorrow, Transatlantic Call-In Show, Luxander and Josie at 2 p.m. Central. Jimmy's going to do Cus I Wanna's on Friday night at 6 and Saturday night at 6. Friday will be with Forrest, and Saturday with Arden Hart. On Sunday show, starting at 2 o'clock, I will be doing the Sunday show, the daytime one with me and Paul. And I'll be doing, Seth Andrews and Eve will be doing the Sunday show after dark. Next week's Skeptalk will be Erika Gibbon and Aaron Adair. Next week's Chewed Gum is Eve and Alyssa. And then I'll be back. We'll announce who I'm here with next time. That is it. We can roll the credit. See, I got nothing to say in the credits. I'm just sitting here. Say something funny, Mandisa. It's up to you. If you don't say something funny, I don't even know that Jimmy Snow has a podcast.